upstairs.
Okay, because I'm gonna,
I probably
grab it,
have
because there's
it.
one guy that
Kinda close, weren't you?
I want him, if I
Okay,
could be
we're doing good.
to the city.
I'm going to go ahead and call the Grand Traverse County Resource Management and Administration Committee meeting of Wednesday, September 9th, 2015 to order. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Were there any changes to the minutes at all?
We need to take roll.
Oh, we're all here.
We're all here, Bonnie.
Pick this up, Bonnie.
Klaus?
One of those meetings.
Crawford? Here. Johnson?
Here.
Lathrop?
Here.
Max Bauer?
Here.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Kropa?
See, I was right. We're all here. Yep.
You're all here.
Any changes to the minutes of August 12th, 2015? They will stand approved. First public comment, now back to Bonnie.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Okay, I see we have Mr. Deturi. Go on. See, we have to do this inefficient, long thing, but we knew you were there and you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome.
My name is Frank Deturi, 2800 River Bend, Traverse City, Michigan. Good evening, Commissioner. Thanks for having me. My name is Frank Deturi. I'm the chairman of the Bourbon River Dam's implementation team. My comments are regarding item 10E on your agenda tonight, the Bourbon River Dam consent agreement discussion. The IT feels responsible to provide some information on this item. We are aware that there have been discussions about the option of repairing the spillway at Boardman Dam instead of dam removal as a means of complying with the DEQ consent agreement. The option of spillway enlargement was addressed as an alternative in the extensive community-driven decision-making process regarding the disposition of the dams. The option was not favored and therefore eliminated, and this is well documented. This option has not been considered since. If you move forward with the discussion on spillway repair, please consider the following points. Pursuing an option other than dam removal will mean walking away from over $5 million in dedicated funding for infrastructure improvements, including replacement of Cass Road Bridge and removal of Boardman Dam, plus nearly complete design and engineering fees of over $1 million. The agencies and organizations that have put funds towards this dam removal have done so because of the unprecedented collaboration and commitment exhibited by the partners to dam removal. Turning our backs on this funding would seriously impair future funding opportunities for projects in this county and this region. The cost and future liability related to design, engineering, implementation of spillway repair is unknown, while dam removal design is at 90%. We know what the removal of Boardman Dam will cost. A robust fundraising plan involving local municipalities, private philanthropy, federal, state, and tribal sources is nearly complete. However, this plan is based on a 100% commitment to dam removal on the part of the owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I will close the first public comment. On to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes requested by any commissioners, staff, or audience? Seeing none, our agenda will stand approved as presented. On to the consent calendar. Ms. Bonnie?
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Number 1, Conservation District Monthly Report. Number 2, Road Commission Monthly Report. Number 3, News from MSU Extension. Number 4, Resource Recovery Managers Report. Number 5, County Staff Report. Approvals, there were none.
Would any commissioner like to remove any item from the consent calendar? Staff? Audience? I will make one note on receive and file item number 2, the Road Commission Monthly Report. There is an error on, let me see if I can find the appropriate page here. It is page number 10 of our packet, which is the last page of the Road Commission Report. Item number 10, the 2015 County Road Tour, you'll see is highlighted. I'm assuming it's highlighted because there's an error in the date. The date of October 8th is correct, but it is not a Tuesday as stated, that's a Thursday. I don't think that makes any difference for receiving it, but it was pointed out by a road commissioner today, and I am spreading the news so that you can make sure you mark down the correct date in your calendar, and I'm sure we'll hear more about the annual road tour in the future anyways. That being said, we have a motion to receive.
Madam Chairman, I would move to approve the consent calendar as provided.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. On to special orders of business, we have none. Items removed from the consent calendar, we have none. On to department action items from the County Clerk's Department, we have the G2G Cloud Solutions Credit Card Processing Services. And it looks like we have Sarah here to discuss that.
Hello. So we're requesting to deviate from Resolution 221, 2010, and enter into an interlocal agreement with Oakland County G2G Cloud Solutions for credit card processing services. We've been unhappy with our current provider. This is another government that's created a credit card processing solution, and it's no cost to the county. There's a potential that we could actually receive some revenue from it. I calculated it out. If based on 1,200 transactions a year, we could probably receive $500. It's not a moneymaker, but we're not spending any money. And it would be more efficient for our office. Our current solution, we have to go through 8 screens in order to process a person's credit card. This would cut it in half between logging in and actually running the credit card. Any questions?
I would move to authorize the board chair to sign the interlocal agreement with Oakland County G2G Cloud Solutions for credit card processing services.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Max Bauer, support by Lathrop. Any questions?
The only question I have, Sarah, is some of these, having been involved in that a little bit, some of these credit card companies that you're currently providing, can you get out of that contract?
To my knowledge, yes. The contract that we're under is Magic Writer. It's through, my understanding with talking to Heidi Sheppy, the treasurer, it's through Fifth Third, and it's up for renewal right now, and we haven't signed a renewal.
Okay, because I went through that myself, and I
Yes.
ended up with a credit card machine sitting on the other side of the desk that I wasn't using, just because it was cheaper for me to make the
We have
change.
no credit card machine actually sitting on our desk. It's all web-based. We have like a little magnetic credit card swiper, and it's just literally a mag reader. So we wouldn't be sitting with anything.
Okay.
And we ran that interlocal agreement by Chris Forsyth. He was okay with it. Don Sheehan was really okay with it. He likes that maybe the whole county could switch over eventually. And I think that was all we had to check on, right?
Yep.
At the very last NACO conference I ever attended, I spent a day about computer and solutions. And one of the major presenters was the designer for Oakland County of this particular software, and it's really phenomenal, and they do offer it, we're offering it back then, at no cost, even to very, very small rural communities. So,
Yeah, that was the one thing that they did mention to us. There's a $900 annual fee from them. If our fees that we collect don't cover that, we don't pay it. They just take the fees. So it's anything above and beyond the credit card processing fees and the annual fee that we would receive revenue back, and it would be split 50-50 between Oakland and us.
As large as we are, we will go beyond that. I mean, we have so far, anyway, in credit card transactions.
Do we know what the enhanced transaction fee from Oakland County to the taxpayer is going to be?
There was, it should have been in the PowerPoint, the attachment.
Didn't go through the attachments for
Yeah,
it.
when the customer transacts this business, they will know what the fees are.
Yeah, it's laid out. But there is, on, I think, page 5 of the pictures, there's the EAF fees.
Right, I see.
Yep, and it has the range. And if they do an electronic check, which is something that we don't currently offer through our current preventer, but if they do an electronic check from home, it's just a flat $2.50, no matter the value. So that's another option for them to use.
Anything else? Well, once again, we thank your department, Bonnie. You guys are always on the leading edge of being more efficient and very impressive. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. On to District Court Substance Abuse Assessment Vendor. Do we have Carol Stocking
No,
here?
I can run with it.
Okay.
They did bid out for this service. Only one bid was received. It's the same vendor that's currently providing the service, Catholic Human Services, and they have agreed or to continue at that price. So the district court is asking, requesting board approval to enter into a 2-year contract with Catholic Human Services for that service.
So moved?
Support.
Moved by Wheelock, support by Johnson. Any discussion?
Is that in their budget, this item?
Yes.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On to the next thing, I believe, is John from the Planning Department, Hotel Tax Overview.
Good evening, John Syke, Planning and Development Director. I believe last month you had some discussion, at least at the tail end of one of your meetings, regarding the hotel tax issue. And actually, this was something that I researched initially when I arrived at Grand Traverse County. At the time, the county was interested to see if there was opportunities to utilize the room assessment fee that's applied to the hotels and motels in Grand Traverse County to offset some of the costs for some of the park operations that are done by the county, parks and so forth. And so I did some research at that time, and basically I've heard that you were interested in some information on the hotel tax in Michigan. Was able to just basically go back and dust it off and update the information. It's pretty, I wouldn't say it's real complex in Michigan, but I would say there's a variety of statutes that relate to accommodation, either room assessment fees or actual taxes. And there is a difference between those. But they've been applied in different varieties throughout Michigan over the years. I didn't even really look at the Detroit area because that has some specific acts that are only addressed to those areas. But the ones that are really probably pertinent to the discussion, if the board ever is interested in any of this, is that there is the Community Convention and Tourism Marketing Act, which has been amended over time. But that's what is done, that's what's applied in Grand Traverse County through the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Traverse City Tourism, and that's a room assessment fee up to 5%. The hotel tax, the county room tax that is applied throughout Michigan is to those counties that meet a certain population threshold. There's essentially 8 counties that fall within that county room tax. Those are Calhoun County, Genesee, Ingham, Kalamazoo, Kent, Muskegon, Saginaw, and Washtenaw. As I mentioned, those other counties in the Detroit area, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, are really under separate statutes and address different issues, such as Cobo Hall and so forth. There's been some other, now in that particular act, it's basically a 5% motel tax, and that goes to the counties, so that's a revenue of those counties. And most of those are used for, similar to the room assessment fee, for promoting tourism and convention business, but it can also fund facilities, so convention facilities. So for instance, in Kent County, they use theirs for funding their convention center that they have financing it, the one that's downtown Grand Rapids. So there's also some other acts that were really kind of in play that kind of supplement some of those particular acts. But the hotel tax and the room assessment fee, the Marketing Act, are really the two that are really kind of used throughout Michigan. In terms of the room assessment fee, there's 70 organizations that use that fee throughout Michigan. And that is really, that particular room assessment fee, you have to have a Convention and Visitors Bureau to really tap into it. It's not utilized by counties in any way. We did take a look at some of the comparison of how the taxes, the different rates are throughout the United States. Just in your packet, there's a select different destinations that we looked at: sales tax and then room tax or room assessment fee. In Grand Traverse County, with the 5% plus the sales tax, it's 11%, which puts it at about average for those particular destinations. But when you look into the actual, some of the information related to it, it's interesting. For instance, the revenues that are gathered from the room assessment fee is pretty considerable for Grand Traverse County. It's a little over $5 million in 2014. And that puts us really on par with Ann Arbor. Really only, at least in the counties that have the room tax, only Kent County and Washtenaw County are higher. Saginaw County, Ingham County are lower at about $2.5 million. So it's a considerable amount of money that's being brought in from that room assessment fee for the CVB here in Traverse City. Also within your packet, it did highlight some of how the uses, from my understanding in reading through those, whether it's the room assessment fee or the hotel tax, use of those revenues is really geared back towards promotional purposes, or in the case of the hotel tax, the county hotel tax can actually be used for financing of facilities, infrastructure, and so forth related to tourism businesses. And that's pretty much how most of those are being applied throughout the state. It's interesting, though, when you start looking at the spending in terms of per capita. Actually, Grand Traverse County is, and this is some data, it's kind of hard to identify the sources for some of this data, so it was really in one part using the Michigan Tourism Strategic Plan, which had tourism spending by counties, and Grand Traverse County was listed as number 5 in Michigan, with Wayne County being significantly the highest. The interesting part is when you look at it per capita, and in the graph that, or the chart that provided you within this report, it shows that Grand Traverse County has the highest per capita spending for the top 7 counties in Michigan. And in that chart, it shows it at about $8 million, which is twice than the second county, which is Saginaw County, at $4,000 per capita. Interesting, that's apparently may have been 2010 data. The Traverse City Tourism Bureau, in their 2012 report, their per capita amount there is at about $13,000. And I know that often tourism advocates will often claim that the benefit of this is that there's this kind of, it spreads throughout the community for people coming in and spending all these dollars. But I guess what the important, I would also look at that, why that may be true, would look at the other side of that to see what is the impact. For instance, if you're having more than twice the second county in terms of spending per capita, what does that impact on that population? For those other counties, the impact are much larger sizes in population, so they're able to absorb that impact. They have the infrastructure available to them to accommodate that. Where in a county of this size, why that's a higher per capita is also an indicator that it may have some significant impacts on operations in Grand Traverse County. It did not really go into any details of what those impacts are. I don't really have the data, but there are some studies out there. Like I said, most of the time, tourism advocates will promote all the spending that happens and the benefit of that, job creation, tax revenue, and so forth. But there is a cost and impact to local government. It's just something that really probably hasn't been truthfully defined for Grand Traverse County. But there is an impact on the infrastructure, facilities, public safety, health services, and all types of other municipal operations that support the community. Certainly those are services that are benefited by the residents, but those are also very important for visitors that are coming into the area. If you don't have that infrastructure and services in place, then it's not really going to be a viable tourist area. In terms of employment, there's about 15% of the people in the people employed in Grand Traverse County, about 15% work in the accommodations and food services. And that's a considerable number. That's roughly about 7,800 people. But when you look at the wages, particularly the average weekly wages at about $333 in 2014 is consistently at the low end of the wage scale in our community. So those may be a significant number, but in terms of what their income is they're pretty much low-wage jobs. The other thing that is, in looking through some of this, is the seasonal fluctuation of the tourism industry in Grand Traverse County. There was a seasonal population study that was done by Networks Northwest for the 10-county region. We tend to be an area that has a lot more of the overnight people, the people staying at hotels and motels, compared to the other counties. In 2012, Grand Traverse County had a permanent population of 89,000. The second home population was about 3,000. The overnight population on average was about 6,100. So we were right around 98,000 people. That's about a 9% increase, and that's on an annual average. But if you look at the peak time in July of 2012, while we had that base population of 89,000, we had about another 20,000 people that were at peak time, and whether they were second home visitors or overnight visitors in our community. So it's a significant, about a 19% increase. It's even more significant to some of our surrounding counties, particularly in July, which tends to be the highest month. For example, in Leelanau, their population increases by 40%. Kalkaska, 32%. Antrim and Benzie both had 42%. So if anything, they're feeling a even greater significant increase in terms of population numbers. But we do know that why those numbers are there, those tend to be more rural areas, and a lot of the services that I would suggest that those are found for those people in those areas are found in Grand Traverse County. This was just intended to provide some feedback and information to you based on some of your comments and interest. I guess what I was looking at this different statutes, one thing I did not see was any of those statutes being applied for funds that would offset typical government services, local government services. It was mostly, again, convention and visitors facilities or promotional for tourism activities.
John, what is the population threshold, and does density factor into whether or not the county can implement a tax?
Yeah, if it was, that would be the county room tax, and we'd have to have at least a city of 40,000 people, which we only have one city in Grand Traverse County, and they're about 16,000, 17,000. the latest estimate.
That many? I thought it was under 15.
Yeah, if I read this information correctly, it says that the restricted to counties having populations less than 600,000 people and a city of at least 40,000 population. We're never going to get there.
Very select target.
We're never going to get there. It's just, we've talked about the federal designation and all of that. We looked at it thinking we were going to get there with the last census, and they changed the rules and we didn't come close. And I'm guessing before they do a new census, they'll change it again. But I think the discussion still continues to need to be moved forward. The idea that 90,000 citizens in Grand Traverse County can support infrastructure that will handle 450,000 people that came here 4th of July weekend is just impossible. Our 911 service is overwhelmed, our police, our fire protection, they're overwhelmed, our cities, our wastewater treatment plants, all of this stuff is just overwhelmed by the volume, and we all complain about the trash that's left on the beach or the trash that's piled up by the waste barrels, but we simply can't afford or have staff enough to take care of all of that. I don't know that there's a simple solution here, but we need to keep having the discussion, because it just needs to, somehow or another, we have to figure out a way to improve our infrastructure to be able to handle these big swells in our population.
The reason I am focusing in on this is the city of Traverse City, which I in part represent, has a major impact in the summer months on their police, et cetera, and obviously the county does as well with 911, the sheriff's department. It's significant. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, are they able to use that funding as they see fit? In other words, could they voluntarily help support the infrastructure costs for these visitors to come in the summer months? And do you know if there is any accountability with the CVB, John? Who do they report to?
Well, let me answer your first question. I think there is an opportunity. I think that would be the best route to go at this time, is to, first of all, I think the communities, we recognize there's an impact. We see the impact on an annual basis. I think it needs to be quantified a little bit more in terms of what that actual cost might be, because I believe that the CVB could help to support those services, particularly when there's major events that are occurring. In reading through their statute, they do have kind of some flexibility in terms of where they could apply some of those revenues that they receive. So I think if there was some type of an agreement or arrangement between, say, the county, maybe some of the townships in the city with the CVB to help to, certainly I think for events, there could be that opportunity. Certainly could be for potentially some of the facilities as well, for instance, like the parks and so forth. I think that's a real opportunity, and that's one of the things, like I mentioned, that is they have a considerable amount of revenue that's coming in, over $5 million a year is considerable. And if you recognize that that's also compounded with the Pure Michigan ad campaign that the state is using, which is now going to be bumped up from $29 million up to $34 million annually. That puts Michigan really in the top 10 in terms of tourism spending. And I think, as we recognize, a lot of that is impacting this particular region, probably more so in terms of the impact than probably any other area in terms of Michigan. So it seems like there's opportunity there to maybe put some of those back into the resources and services, infrastructure that really serves that population that visits us on a regular basis. Certainly if you do not maintain a certain level of quality, in other words, if you do not have a safe environment for those people to visit, if you don't have the facilities to accommodate them, it really ultimately ruins the attractiveness of the area when you can't accommodate the visitors. So I think that's a great opportunity. to have those conversations with the CVB. As far as accountability, they do report to the state, but I'm not sure, other than the reporting requirements per the statute, if there's anything beyond that. in
My
terms of
next
accountability.
question to you, John, is would you be willing to reach out to the CVB and begin a dialogue with them?
Well, I think that would be, probably a little bit premature. I think one of the things that would be difficult is that they're going to basically indicate, based on some of their reporting that they've done, is that they've pumped a lot of money into the community already. There's tax revenues, sales tax, there's all kinds of spending at stores and businesses in our community. I think what we need to quantify is what is that impact. And I know that may be difficult, but if we can actually say, this is what the impact is on our services in terms of local government, whether it's the county or city providing those, I think would it be at least be able to illustrate to them what that is as we go into some conversations with them.
Well, I wanted to thank you for this. You know, this is a big passion of mine. I've talked to you about this since the beginning of my term, but 3 years ago, I started going to things in Lansing talking about a tourist tax in Grand Traverse County, and it was about as well-received as the Hartman-Hammond Bridge is when you discuss that. And I couldn't understand why, you know. I grew up in Florida. My family was in the resort business. My family was in the resort business in Grand Traverse County. To me, it's just kind of part of how things are. When you heavily utilize an area, you help invest in it, and it's just the way that most of the states do it. And I couldn't understand Grand Traverse County and why they were opposed to that. Question on some of these charts. I see here Mackinac Island, Michigan has a 16% tax when you spend the night there, 6% state of Michigan sales tax, 10% room tax fee. Revenue created from that goes to their CVB. Is that how it works?
Yeah, well, obviously, the sales tax goes to the state of Michigan, but all
Right.
those extra
The 10%?
10% goes back to, well, I don't know for certain on that, because there's some added, certainly it's a higher amount than some of the other places in Michigan, so I don't know if that for
They
certain.
clearly are not concerned that it's going to scare people away from staying on Mackinac Island. And then on the statewide listing of the 5 counties, Ingham, Kent, Saginaw, and Washtenaw County, their revenue raised goes solely to a CVB?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, with the exception of Kent, actually, in Kent County, most of theirs is going to finance the facility, their convention facility,
The
DeVos.
yeah, the DeVos Center.
DeVos
Okay.
Center, yeah.
And when looking through this, there is the ability for the 5% that is levied by the CVB to be shared with local entities, which was something I initially had asked years ago. It went over like a large boulder when I discussed that with the CVB. About 15 minutes prior to this meeting, I was sitting with Brad Van Dommelen discussing this, and he clearly was defensive at first. It's not fair to levy taxes on the tourists. And he, by the end of it, I said that I would ask if this board was interested in continuing a discussion, and if we could, he would be interested in talking to me about it more, as I have done a tremendous amount of research in this, and we have such a great partner here with John, and talking with Alex Mochin from Summerside Properties, who has served as the president of the Hotel Motel Association, currently is the treasurer, I believe, of the Lodging Association, and he has a lot of interest in this, in just finding out, number one, where the interest would be, or why they would want to share their 5% levy. Why would you? You're bringing in $5 million revenue to your organization, and then you're just going to happily give it away. Nobody would. But if we were to quantify it, as John said, with impact on services, I think that there would be a place to start a discussion. But the other thing is really the scope of the legislation. I understand we don't meet the density criteria, nor we probably won't after Census 2020, But there is the ability to change legislation, and the reason I say that is, as much as I study legislation in Michigan, I find it's interesting because 20 years ago, one of the things you would hear is nobody notices Michigan exists above Grand Rapids. 10 years ago, during the Granholm time, they really didn't understand that Michigan existed. But I think Governor Snyder and the current administration, all of it has shown that they understand that there is now, Traverse City is its own unique entity, I understand, but statewide we thought of the auto industry. We think of mining when we think of the UP. We think of all kinds of industry, Kellogg, cereal, Grain City, Midland Dow, chemicals. People now think of Traverse City, Petoskey, Charlevoix as tourism. I think now more than ever, we're primed for the idea of a change in the legislation because we're a unique area in Michigan that has created a need for this type of legislation. And I think now could be a time to start that discussion via, obviously, people like MAC who help us, NACO who help us. But we have the ability to say we have a town that on any given Tuesday in February might just be us. But on any given Saturday in July is 500,000 people. I don't know a lot of areas that fluctuate from 90,000 to 500,000 people, yet they have the same guys on duty working, the same police officers, the same dispatchers. When I originally brought this up, I think I've talked to now 8 representatives from the counties in our area. I talked about a 3-part use of a tourist tax, as I like to call it. First is first responders, police, dispatch, fire, EMS. I do not know a first responder group in this county that doesn't need help with its budget. And if you were to just go sit, I invite any of you to go sit in Central Dispatch on a July Saturday and listen to what our same staffing plan that is working a Tuesday in February is doing, because they're doing 10 times the work. We need help.
Mr. McGuire with MAC just walked in as we're talking about MAC.
So we have this problem with emergency services and inundation. You can ask anybody that's in emergency services what they do in July or August, and they're not responding. They're responding to all the same citizens like us that need them all year round, and hundreds of thousands of extra people that do that. So number 1, emergency services. Number 2, roads and bridges. We all know that we have a road funding issue in Michigan. This is not a secret. We all know that visitors use our roads, and good roads are attractive to visitors and make them want to use the area. I won't start on traffic plans, but that's a whole nother part of it. Roads and bridges. We had a successful road commission millage here, and we have visually seen more benefit from that road commission millage than we have seen from our state funding, I swear. Considering what they're doing. What if the road commission had additional revenue to use on a local basis? Money spent here, used here. That would be my second thing. And third one would be parks and recreation, most specifically trail maintenance. We've got a vast network of trails that people come up here to visit. Trails don't care if they're in Fife Lake Township or the city of Traverse City or Old Mission. They don't care. They need to be maintained. Our trail system is getting older. We have this great partner like TART. What if they had money that they could use to create this? And that's kind of where we go. We would have levying from lobbyist groups like the trail people, the road people, the first responders. We should have hotel motel on our side because all of these services improved would create a better environment for visitors. So I think that this is something worth looking at, and I understand that currently we're stuck, but we aren't always landlocked by legislation. Legislation changes. If we have a strong enough group from the tourist communities, if we gather together with people from Bay Harbor and Harbor Springs and Mackinac, Frankfurt, what is that? Where do you go down at the bottom? Holland, that whole area.
Where do you go down at the bottom?
I don't go south of Cadillac. We all know that. But you add all of that together, and we're talking about millions of dollars that would help our bottom line. We're capped at what we can tax the citizens, and you know what? We don't want to or need to be taxed anymore. We open up our arms and welcome our town to hundreds of thousands of people a year, but we don't share in the cost of backing the services. So I think we do need to sit down and have a discussion and find out. Our major opponents are the CVB and the Hotel Motel Association. Let's find out why. Another proponent or portion of that would be something like MAC, legislative assistance. How do we even talk about changing legislation? And of course, most importantly, the planners like John, who are the visionaries that look forward to it, and aren't as boring as the numbers people like us. But Grand Traverse County isn't getting any smaller. I mean, I've looked at the population projections. My district itself is going to continue to be the largest projected population center, Garfield Township, for the county. We have quite a few hotels in Garfield Township, but not like the other areas. What if we were bringing in revenue from these other rural vacation type areas? It would have a tremendous impact on the bottom line on our county, I think, as we move forward. And potentially, what if we do meet a density threshold? Then we would be prepared, after having had these discussions, to move forward with something like this. And that's kind of where I see this going in the future. I hope. We are inundated and overwhelmed with services to our visitors. We love them, we welcome them, we enjoy them, but it's getting hard to provide the level of service that many people need in a town that just a few decades ago, a lot of people had never heard of.
It's stressing the city services significantly.
We're very unique in Michigan. I mean, while we share a sisterhood with many of the other resort communities, I don't see any have seen the growth that Grand Traverse County and Traverse City have seen. We have these discussions on affordable housing and all of that, and if you don't think it's tied to the tourist, then you're wrong. Because the type of jobs that service tourists are the types of jobs that, as John said, average $333 a week in pay. And we are bringing in more tourists, therefore we need more low-paying jobs, and we have nowhere for them to live, and now we're asking the citizens of Grand Traverse County to shoulder the burden for that too. It all seems to go back to the same revolving cycle of we have exploded, not only in population, but in visitor population. But if you would be interested in working, I mean, I'm happy to work with you on it and putting together those potential numbers on consequence of local services, we would have something to sit at the table with and start opening up this discussion. This isn't an overnight thing, but Grand Traverse County is the leader in tourism in northern Michigan. I think it's going to have to be the leader in change for legislation. It's not one size fits all anymore, and we aren't the GM people that live in Detroit area's summer home weekend thing anymore. We have 500,000 people here sometimes on the weekend. That's why I appreciate you taking this step, John. I was thrilled to see it. Excellent job, really good information, and I was able to look up the different legislation. It was all right here, so thank you so much. And maybe if we can talk, I know Brad was interested in speaking with you.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting when you look back at the different pieces of legislation that the state has, it's really not it's not like there's a certain template that the state is following. There's a lot of statutes that pop up because of community responses. 5 years ago, Bay City or Bay County and Midland County wanted to join in with Saginaw County, so they passed a piece of legislation so they could do some regional promotional activities. The original room assessment fees were in Mackinac Island in Traverse City as a response to what was being provided for the Detroit area. So it's never been really like this is one way or the other. It's been kind of a piecemeal approach. So I think it does lend opportunity for some legislative amendments potentially. The challenge I think is the use of those revenues for something that would have to be clarified, and I don't think I've seen that in any of the statutes for anything other than promotional and or convention facilities and so forth. But that's not to say that that can't happen. There are other states that do provide those revenues for certain activities. You mentioned affordable housing. In California, they have a transient occupancy tax that does fund affordable housing. And certainly you're right, that's where that challenge often comes to, is for the service industry people that are residing in our community. Employers certainly are feeling the impact. It's kind of a circle that we're dealing with, and certainly seems to be that there's a relationship there. And if the industry wants to continue to expand and grow, you're going to need that infrastructure, whether it's physical infrastructure or the services, whether they're employees are actually the public services, public safety, health services, and so forth. So I think it's a good idea.
Anyone else? Well, if maybe Chairwoman Maxbauer and I could be in touch with you regarding maybe some discussions, certainly with, and I talked to Kent Wood as well this evening regarding it, Laura Oblinger, so two Chamber of Commerce people, along with Brad Van Domelen from the CVB and Alex Mochin from Hotel Motel Association, just to kind of, hey, guess what's on the agenda tonight? And they were, I'm certain they're willing to have a discussion.
You know, historically, they've talked about, well, you know, if we raise the hotel motel tax 2%, you know, people won't come.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the people that are staying at Great Wolf Lodge are not going to come for $4. I'm just confident
And they're
of that.
paying a hotel motel tax of 5% already. How many people here knew there was a hotel motel tax?
I've said it before, when I book a hotel room, I don't even look to see what the tax is. It's just part of the thing, you know? So, to me, that's the airlines keep doing the same thing. Increase their baggage fees, but they don't want any other taxes because it might suffer sales, but yeah.
I think Traverse City sells itself. I think we are a destination for a reason. And I don't think anybody would be willing to pay less to have crumbling roads and no parks and rec and all of that. It's like Disney World. You just know you're going to buy an $8 Coke for the kids, but you still go. We all still go.
I think it's going to involve legislation. You know,
I
we
don't
told,
think
you know,
we'll meet those thresholds.
Schmidt told us before that's kind of a non-starter, but I think we need to start pushing that issue in partnerships with others. Because even for me, even if we had a seasonal tax for when the population is here, to specifically to help offset what you described there, and that kind of thing.
And again, I want to stress, the city really is stretched
Yep.
to its limit in the summertime. It really, truly is. And I'd like to reach out and maybe after the new commission is elected in November, I'd like to reach out and include the city as well in this discussion. I think we all have to work together in
The
this.
city has had the heart of the growing pains issues between the festival fatigue discussions last year and the changes in fees for the Cherry Festival and allowance use of the open space. They certainly are the heart of the affordable housing issue. And really, if you really take several steps back and look at the big picture, which we should do, we should always be looking forward and looking in a wide view. They all boil down to these growing pains based on tourism, because it affects who lives in Grand Traverse County. If you're a service provider, 15%, as he said. Of course, we all know that there's other businesses that provide services to weekend houses and things like that that add to a lot of that. And then you can then attack of things like affordable housing and park fees, festival fatigue pricing, all based on that. To me, our affordable housing discussion is a Band-Aid issue right now because we're not discussing the real reason why, and that's service-based income jobs. And the more visitors we bring, the more service-based income jobs we bring, and it goes right back to the rest of us to shoulder that, particularly the business owners in this county. It's sort of a vicious cycle. As John says, you just keep rotating right back to the same. We can't be the only county facing this in Michigan, but I'm certain we're probably the most drastic. Well, thank you, John. I will certainly talk to you.
Okay.
And like Sunny says, it's just we need to continually keep talking about this. Eventually, it'll sink in, right?
Tim, we are going to be mentioning this at MAC. Hotel tourist tax.
Okay, we are on to, I'm going to, wait, give me 1 second here. At least it hasn't fallen over yet with the broken magnet. On to Administration and Finance. Is it Petabago? I'm not certain that I'm,
Matt can tell you.
We have Matt here to,
Tobago.
at Tobago? I was close. Very close. At Tobago Pond Resolution of Support, we welcome Matt McDonough.
Hi, everybody. I'll try to keep this short, but I also want to make sure that you've got, feel free to ask me any questions. As you may know, the Land Conservancy assists local units of government in helping them acquire land when local units of government when their priorities overlap with our priorities. Same applies to the state of Michigan. I think I was actually before this entity a couple of years ago for a piece next to the Vasa Trail. Wildlife Division is very interested in picking up this piece as a consolidation to the state game area there. There's a map that is included in your packet. It shows this property. It's in red, bordered to the south by Maple Bay County Park, and to the north and east by Etobicoke State Game Area, to the west by East Grand Traverse Bay. Really significant wildlife habitat parcel. Acme Township passed a resolution to support unanimously at their meeting a couple weeks ago, and the reason I'm before this entity is requesting the same resolution of support, basically. The DNR, whenever they pursue grant funding from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund to acquire a piece of property, they are required to reach out to the local units of government to get their input at a minimum and record that input and provide the copies of the minutes from the meeting. What I'm asking for is a resolution of support. That actually helps bolster their application. There's some additional points given, and it's also good for the trust fund board to know what the local units of government feel about the state acquiring land within their jurisdiction. So it helps, it helps them when they're weighing their decisions come December. There's actually 2 tracts of land. The one tract doesn't show up really well on the map. There's the red parcel, and then in between, and you should have a close-up map. In between Maple Bay and the Etobicoke State Game Area, there's a 66-foot wide strip of land that runs from the southeast corner of the Etobicoke property, the addition property, out to 31. That's the legal access. That doesn't show up, though, on this map, but it basically runs just east and west. It's a 66-foot wide strip, about 1,400 feet long. So.
Is there any questions at all? Ron?
Matt, with your resolution of support here, it says that there'll be no cost to the county, and there's no money that we would be paying, but we'd be losing $25,000 a year in property taxes. How do we recover that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It'll actually be a little bit less. Right now, the taxes on both properties are about $26,000. And I did ask the state to provide me with a PILT estimate, and I have that here. It's going to be, their PILT payment, the first year would be around $11,500, and that represents about a 56% reduction in revenue from a tax standpoint. After that first year, it gets a little more complicated. The local assessor can weigh in. Those are 2 different parcels here.
And then, Matt, that would be distributed amongst all of the taxing jurisdictions?
Just as indicated on that sheet that I gave Bonnie, that's the breakdown. That came from Treasury Department in Lansing at the request of the DNR.
The largest taxing jurisdiction, Commissioner Klaus, is the Elk Rapids School District.
Right.
Their taxes total about $11,000. The state SET tax is $3,400 of that $26,000. And the county, amongst the road commission, Grand Traverse County Medical Care, which that drops off, and the Commission on Aging is about a $4,100 in taxes total.
So I guess, Commissioner, I didn't answer your question. I provided you with some more information. But in terms of where do you make up that, you don't directly, I would say.
Right.
There's a public benefit associated with, helping to consolidate land holdings like that. It does lessen the burden from a management standpoint when you have parcels like that get developed that are surrounded by other public land. There's almost always user conflicts. The current owners experience a lot of trespassing issues. We manage Maple Bay for the county, and we're actually we're in discussions right now with the DNR because they're going to be looking for our assistance in helping to manage some of that waterfront. We're not so much interested in the habitat there in terms of managing. Wildlife Division does a good job, but there's a lot of boat traffic that area sees, and they've asked our assistance in helping to manage, trash issues and things like that, and we're prepared to do that. But there is a public benefit to protecting, significant wildlife habitat, having better access to natural resources. It is an economic driver for our community.
Are there any other questions at all?
I just had a comment. I was at the Acme Township meeting last week, and there was overwhelming support. A lot of citizens got up during public comment and supported acquiring this particular piece of property.
Has the Elk Rapids School District weighed in on this at all?
No, they haven't. They're probably not even aware of it. Because the option that we've negotiated, that's, just between the Conservancy and the landowner. We have had, after it came onto your agenda, we've had a couple of calls from the press asking questions about it, so you may see an article here in the next few days, but they're probably not aware of it.
But the PILT proposal from the DNR would make them essentially whole, wouldn't it?
I gave the 2 copies that I had away.
Yeah.
I gave one to Ron, one to Bonnie.
Okay, that's what I was trying to read. They are
you would-
roughly $11,000 to the Elk Rapids Public Schools. Am I correct?
You'd
right
have to
now?
do a comparison
You'd have to do a
between
percentage of
that
that
sheet and then the
$41,000.
tax sheet that was,
Okay,
Oh, there.
so they would be
They wouldn't be made whole, but they would receive, they would receive the largest share of the PILT payment that's
Okay.
ultimately distributed.
but just their same percentage of total that they would anyways.
That's my understanding
That's
of
my
how it
understanding as
works.
well.
Because I know that PILTs sometimes are negotiated to the benefit of a specific entity, isn't that correct? Like for instance, we were talking about police receiving the PILT benefit with the tribal acquisition in Garfield, wasn't that correct? So you can have PILTs that are preferential towards a specific entity, I thought.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't understand why you don't know that.
Because he knows everything else.
Yeah.
Why don't
Well,
we know that?
there are.
Really, Sonny?
Yeah. There is.
We can have a long discussion about that, right, Matt?
I guess I'm just saying, I don't think it's a complete loss if the school system, I believe it would be prudent for them to weigh in, but it's not necessarily something that couldn't be negotiated with the state, I wouldn't think, that it would be a deal breaker.
Yeah, I can't speak for the state. They've asked for our assistance in, negotiating the option, securing the property so that it doesn't get sold out from under the state, because these projects take years to complete. This property probably wouldn't be closed on, even if the trust fund awards the grant this December. It's very likely that the closing wouldn't happen for another year, so December of 16. Our role from the acquisition standpoint will end then, and then we'll have a little bit of management assistance. But in terms of the intricacies of allocating, negotiating PILT, that's outside of what the state has asked us to do. I can try to get your question answered and come back.
Well, I think it would be something that would be important to that entity, maybe more than this particular board, but it seems to be that they are the ones at the largest loss, I guess, was my point. But to another item, being on County Parks and Rec, Grand Terrace Regional Land Conservancy does a phenomenal job keeping up our Maple Bay Preserve, which borders this. They are an incredible partner to the county, and knowing that they're involved in this project made it okay with me. Son.
When you talk about the economic effect of this type of a decision on the governmental entities, whether it be Grand Traverse County or the Elk Rapids School District, you can't just talk about the PILT though, because if someone were to purchase this property and develop it, all of a sudden the tax base for that parcel of property becomes significant, a lot more than the $26,000 a year that they're currently paying in taxes.
I thought this was wetlands.
So it's important. What's that?
I thought this was wetlands.
Not all of it.
No, we had to go through an extensive, appraisal process. 2 appraisals were done, including the cost to develop the road down that access. The property's valued at a little over $2 million, and it looked like the highest and best economic use was for about 7 large waterfront sites. So there is value there.
There is value.
Right, yeah, the value developed is significantly more than the tax base of $26,000. So it becomes more of a decision of whether we want to protect this parcel of property for its natural habitat, or whether we're going to just allow it to be developed as a developer sees fit, and that's always a tough discussion because, Matt knows, we just did this in Long Lake Township. We took, 300 acres?
Just about.
Of
Scout
frontage on what used to be Timbers Girl Scout Camp. Long Lake Township acquired that property.
But this property is completely landlocked by protected land.
No, it's not. There's a
No, it's not.
66-foot
It's not?
roadway that goes from US 31 to it. That's what he said.
All the way to it?
Yeah,
All the way
it has
through.
legal access right along that boundary between Tobago
Okay.
State Game Area and Maple Bay.
So that makes it a different
Yep.
situation then, okay.
It does.
So, yeah, it's not a landlocked parcel. It has access.
That doesn't diminish its value, though, from the state, just like the conservative, we look at consolidation opportunities, and this is a perfect consolidation opportunity. When you have those large blocks of protected land, it's just so much easier to manage those as one unit as opposed to dealing with, user conflicts, recreational user conflicts, neighbor conflicts that occur when those types of properties do get developed.
When Grand Traverse County made the decision to get Maple Bay property, I made the statement that I had just recently returned from out west and I'd spent some time at Yellowstone, and I said 75 years ago, President Roosevelt saw fit to deem that Yellowstone Park had unique features that needed to be protected as a national park. When we looked at Maple Bay and the opportunity to have West Bay frontage or East Bay frontage and the area to the pond and the nature preserve, it just made sense to protect that property for posterity more than to allow it to just be developed. And the opportunity to have that property come to you again is pretty rare. If you're going to make the decision to save this piece of property for posterity and for the environmental characteristic of it, this is the time to make the decision. Because 5 years from now, you won't have the opportunity to make that decision.
Christine?
I'm not really in favor of this, of the resolution. I have a question. Will the public have access to this property, or will it be no trespassing?
Oh, no, absolutely, it'll have public access. It has to. State land has to have, public access. Right now, we're doing some preliminary work with Wildlife Division to figure out where a suitable parking area might be. We're looking at UA trail, universally accessible trail improvements. Right now, there's a 2-track that goes all the way to the water. There's a gate. It goes through the state game area, actually, to a gate along the eastern boundary of the property. And then it continues on to the private property, out to the waterfront that the family who owns it now uses. If vehicular access is permitted all the way down to the waterfront by the public, it's going to have a detrimental impact on the resource that's there. So right now, even at this stage in the game, we're looking proactively at where and how do we develop a nice large parking area, either on this subject piece or on the state game area, kind of where the gate is, and then create a nice ADA trail or UA trail. That way folks with limited mobility, moms with strollers can walk down like a crushed limestone aggregate, and then a spur trail to the north or the south end of Tobago Pond with an overlook and some UA accessible deer hunting blinds for the pond, so that we do have good access, but not vehicular access all the way down to the water, because it'll just be to have a vehicular access parking area at the water that far off of a main road creates kind of an attractive place for folks to go party that's out of the view of neighbors and law enforcement. So we've got to be thoughtful about that.
I have one more question for you. You can proceed without a county board resolution?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, is there anything that you can think of that we may want to know to consider in having a resolution about this, or? Okay, nothing blaring, jumping up and down at you? Okay, it's good to know.
Well, development isn't always awful. I mean, it sounds like a wonderful place to have a resort, and people could pay money to be there and enjoy it. It's beautiful. They could participate in all the nature stuff.
They could pay a hotel motel tax.
Yes, they could. And so I'm not in favor of giving away our tax base. There's an awful lot of parkland there right now. And so, I don't know. I have to think about it.
I think it does boil down to what Sonny was saying, is this an opportunity that this board sees to help protect a piece of waterfront property, or are we not seeing the benefit to that?
Well, I think you have to, and Matt's mentioned this several times, the incompatible use, because if you allow the development of this parcel of property, it's truly going to be an incompatible use to not only the pond area and the nature preserve there, but also our Maple Bay Park, because there is going to be some incompatible usage.
Yeah, and I've seen that down in Florida. They would build an airport in the middle of nowhere at the time. And then, of course, they put a housing development over it, and then all the people complain about the noise from the airplanes when that was there first. So, I mean, I do support this personally. I think it'd be nice to get that together into one package. And yeah, I would have concerns if they did develop that with people hunting and everything else around there, and I think it would cause a lot more conflict. So, yeah, it's taken some property off the market, but I think there's plenty of property out there still. So,
well, the other thing, if you're going to talk about a trailhead, a parking area, let's make sure that Grand Traverse County and the Parks and Recreation Department partner in that discussion, because we've talked about the need for parking areas and trailheads at Maple Bay. So, it's a contiguous piece of property. We need to be a partner in that discussion with the state and the Land Conservancy.
We applied for and were denied a fairly decent size MD&R trust fund grant for Maple Bay a couple of years ago. We do have a master plan for Maple Bay, and it does include some upgraded parking and I believe a bathroom and that sort of thing. But as Matt pointed out, it is right by 31 there, for visibility, for safety and all of that. Maybe if we did have the DNR next to us and they partnered with us, we'd have better luck at getting our DNR grants accepted, or we could work together. I'm joking, half joking, but
that's absolutely true. When you have governmental partners like that partner, we're looking at this. The nice thing with state applications is that they're not required to raise the local match. They don't have the 25% local match requirement that local units of government have. So our fundraising efforts aren't really focused so much on the purchase price because the state's going to pick that up. It's actually developing those amenities, those improvements to make that whole area much more usable. And, when you look at it in its adjacency to Maple Bay, it only makes sense. I mean, there's already kind of we call them, an unauthorized trail that leads on, the trail that goes from the parking area at Maple Bay down to the water. There's a trail off to the right to the north that actually trespasses onto this piece. It's not a bad location for a trail, but even there's already use patterns becoming established that, people want to see this piece of property. If you're any kind of a boater and you spend any kind of time on East Bay, a lot of people like to park their boats off of that spit of land that you see on the map. So it's an attractive place for people to recreate.
What's the state paying for this?
$2.02 million, $2,020,000.
Okay. And right now, it's valued at 1.1 million?
That's the SCV. We had two different appraisals done locally. They were reviewed by the DNR review appraiser. And the two appraisals came in at actually we had three appraisals done. I take that back. $2 million, $2,020,000, and $2,040,000. And the DNR approved the $2,020,000 figure.
So if it was sold, it would just mean that we're not looking at $25,000 in taxes, we're looking at $45,000 in taxes.
If it was sold to a private.
If we sold to a private.
Right.
Without any development on it.
Right.
So we're looking at big dollars for taxes that we're going to be struggling to find and balance a budget without. So it's just a choice. It's a choice.
When would someone develop it? I mean, it could be years before someone was to develop it.
I think that the potential for the PILT negotiations is critical in this. I don't think, though, once again, the local entities have much say in that at all.
No.
So, Christine.
Matt, I am extremely reluctant to vote for a resolution that impacts a school district and, you can say, $11,000 isn't a lot of money. It is.
I never said that.
Well, without a discussion with the Elk Rapids School District, because I really do think that municipalities need to communicate and work together, and everybody needs to be on the same page, since they are the ones who have a primary impact, are primarily impacted by this. Without a discussion with them, I won't be supporting the resolution.
Dan?
We own Maple Bay, right? Why can't we sell it?
We can.
I mean, is it a
You have
valuable
to
piece of
give
property?
the money back.
Huh?
You'll have to give the money back to the trust fund that paid for the purchase.
I don't know if they've ever looked at it. I mean, we do have financial problems. Just saying.
Yeah, it's not money you'd be able to keep.
Pardon?
It's not money you'd be able to keep because it wasn't county money. There's out of the $9.4 million that went for the purchase of that property, only
Yeah.
$20,000 of that was county money. The balance was grant funded.
But if we sold it to a private entity, we could collect taxes on it.
Oh, yeah, from the tax base standpoint. But there's quite a few hoops you'd have to jump through in Lansing with the trust fund, and you would probably diminish your chances of getting future trust fund grants for either acquisition or development.
Anyone else at all?
You'd also have to find suitable replacement property. That's in the rules as well. That would have the same resource protection and recreational opportunity value as the parcel that you're selling. It's been done once in the history of the trust fund in Benton Harbor.
The resolution before us is support of Grand Traverse County Board. It doesn't speak on behalf of the Elk Rapids School District. I would think that they would have the opportunity to weigh in from their perspective also.
Did anyone want to make a motion in support of the resolution or non-support of the resolution? We could go either way.
I'll make that motion of support for the DNR Wildlife Division's acquisition of Tobago State Game Area Edition.
Support.
Motion by Johnson, support by Wheelock. Was there any further discussion?
Because I just want to, whether we do anything or not, I mean, we can't stop it anyway, right?
It's just like when we voted on the tribal acquisition in Garfield.
It's just a
Yes.
courtesy. It's a courtesy thing, so,
I'm just going to go ahead and call for a roll call because I know.
Crawford,
Yes.
Johnson,
yes.
Lathrop,
No.
Max Bauer,
No.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Klaus,
No.
Kropa.
Yes.
Passed.
Okay. Thanks, Matt.
Yep, thank you for your time.
Okay, on to the next item. We're under unfinished business. It's an exciting, big, full menu of unfinished business tonight. Starting with Part A, Proposal for Strategic Planning Assistance, Part 2. I think we all filled out a poll, and we have selected our date for our second strategic planning meeting,
I'm trying to remember.
October 3rd,
October 3rd.
8:30 in the morning.
Yes, that's my only day, I think.
8:30 in the morning?
8:30, and I voted for 10, FYI. 8:30 is
Is that going to be it?
Twin Lakes. Yep. Was this an informative thing we stuck on?
This is just, yes, this is
Commissioner
just
Maxwell.
information. We have the authority to actually pay this person this time, which we did not do the first
And
time.
I believe she confirmed that date, if
She
I
did.
read the, okay. So
She
I
did.
believe we are set.
So it's just for information.
Okay. Well, we have it there on the record if anybody would like to read that. Next is Mr. Byrd. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, where's it going to be?
Twin Lakes.
Twin Lakes.
Okay, good, I like that.
We need a motion to approve that plan?
Okay.
It's a meeting, so what do we
Yeah,
have to?
but this planning assistance includes approval of a payment for the facilitator, so I believe we would need a motion to authorize that facilitation if it's an expenditure of funds. Is that correct, Bob?
Even if it's under,
Still,
do we have the dollar amount?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up to,
$1,800?
Okay, I think I'm missing that page then, or not seeing it, because I was just...
$900 for,
Yeah, it's on page 46 of your packet.
Yeah, it's $900. And
But
then-
twice 900, right?
it's okay.
Okay, then I'm either missing that or absolutely
Yeah,
lost
but
that
it's
page.
900 for this session, and 900, I think, if I'm reading this right, for when they do the other session with the employees.
Yeah, I'm looking at 2
Yes,
times 900.
because I
Right.
suggested that,
Yeah, I'm trying to flip through this and I'm not finding it.
Well, it's
That's it right
it's
there.
$900 plus $90 per
All right.
hour for the
Madam-
additional services.
Would somebody like to make the applicable motion?
I will. Let me. I would move that we contract
Yeah, I don't know how I
with
missed that.
Barbara Ellis, the Center for Coaching and Leadership Development, for strategic planning assistance in the amount of $1,800.
second? Oh,
Yes, $1,800.
Motion by Max Bauer, support by Crawford. Any discussion? Wheelock?
Well, maybe I missed it, because I read this, that there was $900 plus $90 per hour for the other service. So I don't know that I've got a commitment here that 10 hours will be provided in the pre-meeting development, unless I missed something when I was
No.
reading this.
If you got page 46 up, where it says 1,
Yeah.
that's the one that we will be doing.
Right.
Yes,
Then 2 is another half-day for staff and some board members.
for $900.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there'll be 2 more sessions.
I don't know about you, but I don't want to stay more than half a day.
Well, my concern is the other $90 per hour.
Isn't she
factor that's
saying
in there.
if she goes over those hours, it's $90 an hour? If
But we
that-
just made it at a capped at 1,800
Yeah.
by the motion.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I capped it.
okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we do have 3 commissioners that have signed the memo here to go to Bonnie for the special meeting request. Okay, now it's Greg's turn.
Is Greg
Wake
still
up
here?
back there.
Really.
There's like a whole party going on over there. A whole other meeting.
Separate section. Kind of scary.
I'll reserve comment on that. Greg Bird, Grand Traverse County Emergency Management Coordinator. The storm update, as I think all of you do know, we received a letter, notice from the governor's office last week that we've been approved to apply for state disaster relief Section 19 funds. Dean and Sherry and I, we've trying to do some tentative preliminary work. It's a fairly straightforward, convoluted process, but the first step in that will be collecting cost from entities that aren't able to apply, Road Commission, Sheriff's Department, overtime fees, equipment fees. I think Jim's probably going to have the largest portion of the expense. But then we have to pick a 5-day period during the disaster declaration, and we have to have spent $30,000 or 1% of the 2014 total operations budget. And if we hit that, then we can apply. That gets us in the door. So it's going to be a matter of jockeying for that. And then there's more processes after that that go on. Our briefing with the folks from EMHSD will be here on 9/15. Those invitations went out, and from that point in time, we have 20 days to get our application filed. And this can be any affected municipality in the county. They can either go through us or they can apply separately. So all of that and more will be explained on the 15th. So I have more info. Commissioner Max Bauer and Kropa and Dean have that information as well. I don't even know how to tell you this, so I'm going to try and keep it short and cut me off if need to. Last Friday, EMHSD notified me that they contracted for 3 60-yard trucks to finish the debris removal from our 2 sites. And that we needed just the trucks. And that we needed to have to provide a front-end loader or some means of loading the trucks. And Commissioner Max Bauer and Dean can tell you the back and forth that went on if we needed to find a place to dump it, and then we didn't need to find a place to dump it, and then we did, and then we didn't, and we did, and we didn't. And so they hired the contractor of the trucks. Yesterday morning at 7:30, the city offered to help us out with a front-end loader and a crew at their site and our site to load the debris in the Elmer's trucks. Initially, the state told us that the debris disposal was in the contract for the trucks. At 8:30 yesterday morning, I found out it was not. And the contract had been signed and the trucks were scheduled to be at the site at 7 a.m. this morning. The state gave me a price of what allegedly it was. I spoke with Dean, we approved it. That price was $1,400. Something wasn't right. And I ended up calling Elmer's themselves and the state misspoke. That was only for half of one site, not for all of one. Anyway, to make a long story short, I got a quote for that piece of it, provided it to Dean, Commissioner Max Bauer, and we let him start today. The price is going to be in the area of $7,000 to have total removal. So the state's paying the most expensive part of it, which is the trucking. The city's given us heavy equipment use and drivers, and we're taking care of the dollar per cubic yard of debris disposal. So it's kind of a partnership. Good part about all that is at close of business or before Friday, we're done. We're done with EMHSD, we're done with the state, we're done with contracts. All public areas of the county are taken care of and back to normal. All 3 debris sites, 2, the cities and Skegamog Point, have been returned to their owners in better shape than what they started out with. And I'll tell you tonight, Rasho Road will be too. Will be returned to DNR Friday in better shape than we started out with. The EOC, I returned it to normal status at 0900 this morning. And as I said, close of business by Friday, 9/11. Will be done publicly. There's still a lot of private debris. There's still a lot of people cleaning up on waiting lists for tree services. So, but all that'll remain is for us to walk through the Section 19 ordeal. So, comments, questions?
I just want to thank you for the job that you've done. I think it's been outstanding. I have sat in meetings with you and watched you, I've removed sharp instruments from your immediate reach. I've never seen anything like it, and I hope to not have to see it again. I think you've done an outstanding job, and I know it pained you to say that we had to spend that $7,000, but we had to do it. We have contingency funds for that purpose. We had an emergency in this county, and to think that we're going to get off, I applaud you trying to get off with spending as little money as possible. I think you did a great job, but don't beat yourself up about the $7,000. Please, you've just done an outstanding job from day one. When you were riding in front of my house, as trees were falling in the block, and lightning had just struck the tree outside my house, and you said, I think we have an emergency here. So you've just done a stellar job. Thank you.
Thank you, and all the credits to the team. This is for 2.5 years why they've complained and nattered at me about why they have to take this class and why we have to do this exercise, and they prepared well, and we'll continue to prepare.
Well, and equalization, and Susie Shipman, and I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Greg, we talked about a site in Peninsula Township. Has that one also been cleared?
that one, that's been cleared, all other than some firewood that DNR left there, hoping that it would go away. But after DNR is finished in Leelanau County, they said they would circle back around and remove any firewood. I had a couple inquiries today about it, and so hopefully more of that will walk, but we're not responsible for that site per them. So if it comes back that they want some assistance with that, I'll come back and we can talk about that. But the 3 sites that we were primarily responsible for were the 3 that I mentioned. So,
what kind of reimbursement are we looking at through the Section 19?
I have no idea. with Cherry, working with that, and we have some preliminary data. Jim has a lot of contractor costs, and he was still working on overtime. Tomorrow, I'm going to reach out, unless Nate can take it back, on any overtime that they may have had. I'll see if Metro, wants to come in with us for that. But the biggest thing is to see that we hit that 30,000 threshold, and probably the most expense is going to be, typically it's the first 5 days of the disaster response, and I'm not quite sure where we're going to fall with that. So I actually have the application, and there was again some miscommunication from the state. I was rushing last night at I don't know what time it was, trying to get a resolution put together, and the resolution that will come in front of you will have to be before October 1st. But we have to have the dollar figure that we're going to ask the state to reimburse us for before we can do that resolution. So, and that's going to be the complication for when I have to go to the city commission with the same thing, and if any of the townships go in on their own too, that will have to be there with a resolution with that exact dollar amount. So it's another process of working through EMHSD that's not made easy for the locals. But the maximum that we can get back, the maximum that any jurisdiction can get back is 100,000.
Oh, okay.
So it's capped at 100,000.
Okay.
But we have to hit that first entry level, and then I believe we're able to put in our entire allowed cost for the application. But we have to gather that information very, very quickly. So.
And Dean, any idea where we are in the contingency fund with spending to date?
Well, the spending to date is less than the 10,000 that was authorized. I probably will have to come back with this. And yesterday, full disclosure, I signed the agreement with Elmer's. I thought Greg had done enough. I did talk to Commissioner Maxbauer, and our plan, our fallback was if the board wasn't comfortable with that, we would have stopped the operation after today, and I'm glad that you're supporting that. So. But yeah, we're well within the 10, but we will go over that by the time this is all accounted for. Not by much, though.
Okay.
The other tricky part about us being a sponsor for agencies like County Roads is we have to keep track of their costs, because we sponsor that to recoup all of ours up to 100,000. It's only fair to give them back their portion or the percentage. Same, and that's how many jurisdictions do. The ones that can't put in for themselves let the county, because we have overarching. But I imagine Traverse City is going to hit the threshold too in overtime and equipment and contractors, so they'll be able to make their own application process. As far as East Bay, Acme, Peninsula, and Whitewater, quite honestly, unless there are some costs that I don't know of, I don't know that they're going to hit that 30,000 or 1%. But they'll have the same ability to come to the briefing.
Use the county as a sponsor?
Well, use the county as a sponsor or put in, they receive the same information. I made sure to hit all affected jurisdictions within our county with the pre-information that we put out to tell people to start tracking your costs and trying to, what you have. Overtime's tricky because not all the payroll's been 100% processed for the month of August yet. So, and I know Jim was still using some contractors up until last week or so. But I wasn't so much worried about the $7,000 as I was the miscommunication that was back and forth. That really got to me because we should have clear communication. But anyway, regardless, it's fixed. They're working, and we're going to be, hopefully, I've taken local control back from the state. So all incidents start local and end local, so we're going to end local, hopefully this week.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are on to the Ethics Policy Ad Hoc Committee. Commissioner Maxbauer?
Yes, Commissioner Wheelock and Commissioner Lathrop and myself, along with our consultant and legal counsel, met, and here is a draft ethics policy for your consideration.
Are you in search of an approval or an adoption of the policy this evening? Is that?
Well, if no commissioner has any angst over the policy, we can certainly adopt it tonight.
I have some concerns, first of all. The committee met once, and this is the result of that one meeting. I did put together a draft based on the comments. I think it's pretty close, but I didn't expect it to come to the board this quickly.
Okay.
But I just thought I'd let you know what the changes I would propose would be. I think this will be fairly quick, but first of all, we need to add a general statement about bargaining units and the fact that they're not necessarily bound by these terms until they've negotiated their agreements. We're not going to do anything to conflict with those bargaining agreements. I don't think this necessarily does, but there should be a general statement along those lines. There should also be a general statement that nothing in this policy, and this is not an ordinance like we discussed at the, when it came up before the board at the beginning, this is a human resources policy. It's an employment policy. And there's nothing in this policy that should conflict with any Michigan statutes, and so I want to add a general statement about that. There are some fill-in amounts, maybe we can come back to those, but we didn't fill in an amount for Section 4, subsection 6 that talks about gifts, or specifically if someone were to buy an employee lunch, what's the maximum amount they could spend on that? And also, what's the maximum amount that a vendor doing business or soliciting business from a county employee, how much could they spend in a year total? That's another fill-in in subsection 4, sub 8, or 10, I guess.
Yeah, 10.
There's a couple references to ordinances in the act, and that should be changed to policy. There's a reference to whoever the spokesman for the county is, and we should fill in Christine Erickson's title there. There's references to criminal penalties or referrals in Section 5, A, B, and C. Those should be taken out because this is not a criminal ordinance. Again, it's a human resources policy. There are some things that should maybe be in footnotes. On pages 61 and 62, they refer to a model affidavit of disclosure, and that should just be deleted probably. It shouldn't have been left in there to begin with. It was something that came out of the policy that we used as a model from the Attorney General's office. So those are the primary concerns that I have. So what I would suggest is that I make those changes and maybe come back to you at the regular board meeting at the end of the month, and we'll have that ready for you. And in addition, anything else you want to add?
I greatly appreciate your comments, Bob. You don't have to feel rushed to do this by the end of the month, as far as I'm concerned. I just didn't want to drop the ball on this since we had met, and I didn't want it just to fall through the cracks, which is why I brought it up when I did. Regarding the dollar amount for gifts, I tend to be on the conservative side, and based upon what I experienced at Shell, we were limited to $25 a year, period. From a contractor, from whatever, $25 a year is all we could get. You got a fruit basket at Christmas if you were lucky, or maybe a can of popcorn. We had a contractor double check that gave us cans of popcorn every year. It was under $25. We could have a can of popcorn.
Yes, that's the oil companies give away popcorn to everybody. That says a lot.
So from my perspective, I think $25 for a gift is fine, and I'm okay with the rest of your comments.
one of the other things we talked a little bit about in that meeting, and, I'm not exactly sure how it fits in here, is, for example, when we do the wellness luncheon, we have vendors, county vendors, that help us sponsor that event. So, how does that fit into here? I think there's still a couple things that we need to talk about and, have Bob fill us in, whether the committee get back together or whether we have some additional discussion as a board. But I think there's still a few little quirks in this thing that I still wasn't completely happy with. And I believe we do have to fill in those value amounts. Without question, I think we have to do that. But we have to not only remember that we're talking about value amounts for an individual employee, but we're also talking about, event type things that, that also happen. We're gonna do the MAC conference next week. I'm assuming there's hospitality rooms and some of those things that also occur. And how do those things apply to these type of situations? So, I think we still have some questions.
Okay. Dan?
Bob, do you think we should, the ad hoc committee should meet again? Or do you think it can
I
be-
guess it depends on how many changes we want to make to this. I think that might be a good idea. If the board thinks that we're going in the right direction, maybe.
I
we could shove
I wouldn't be
those.
opposed to it, no.
It sounds to me like you still need some work on this,
I think so.
because there's still some more things to work out. I mean, this is a good start, I think, but yeah, Commissioner Wheelock brings up some good points, that when you have a policy like this, you want to incorporate as much as you can to start, because, what may seem black and white is quickly,
Gray?
yes.
Muddy.
Yes.
No, I'd be willing to do it.
So we'll move forward with you guys
All right.
setting a date, okay?
We'll do it.
That brings us to Section D, update on special meeting dates, dams, interviews, strategic planning. I will turn that over to Commissioner Max Bauer.
Okay. I did invite the City Commission to our September 16th, 6 PM meeting. And I did hear from the city manager. He and I have been playing phone tag. I invited them in writing. I invited them verbally at the City Commission meeting Tuesday night. And the city manager informed me that we will have commissioners present. We do not know whether or not there will be a quorum of the City Commission present. But I made a point to tell the City Commission that I want to have them at the same table that we are at, so that they too may ask questions of the Army Corps right along with us. I've also, and Marty did tell me in his voicemail that he would make sure that the city clerk was going to post the meeting.
If I could.
You may.
The city manager came up and chatted with me after 5 o'clock today, and his concern, we have that meeting tentatively scheduled with Carl Platts with the Army Corps for next Wednesday. The city is hosting the Michigan Municipal League.
Yeah.
And you and I have both talked to him. The last discussion we had, he was asking if we would consider postponing that, because he wants to have as many of the city commissioners there as possible. He's not sure that he's going to be, he's not sure he's going to have a quorum there. And, I told him I would bring that up tonight. I haven't had a chance to talk to Carl. I can understand his concern with, the city commission having something else going on next Wednesday night. And I would ask for your consideration for me to work with Carl on rescheduling that at a later date. I hate to do that, but I think the city manager makes a valid request.
He does.
The MML is on Wednesday night?
Yeah, I think they're actually hosting.
They are at the
something,
Grand Traverse Resort.
and that is in the evening, so it's a direct. I did not know that. I certainly wouldn't have.
Bonnie?
I sent something to the city clerk, and he said it won't be an actual joint session. The city commission has been invited and could sit in the audience. There's a schedule conflict. So I don't think he was planning on a formal meeting where the city clerk would be there, because they really...
Well, and I appreciate your communication, Bonnie. I invited them to sit at the table with us when I spoke verbally Tuesday night. I said, I want the city commission to be able to ask questions of the Army Corps as well, which I do. But, you know, whatever the county board's pleasure is, I'll go with. Now, I did speak with Jim, the DEQ dam inspector, the gentleman who inspects the dams. And I have to be careful how I speak. And he said that he was planning on coming to our meeting on the 23rd, which is Ways and Means.
We'll have the DEQ on the 23rd and the Army Corps on the 16th.
And I said, we can still have him on the 23rd. Jim, I said, you know, if you can come on the 23rd, come on the 23rd. But, you know, I have to tell you, I have new appreciation for Chris Kramer as she tries to juggle meetings of people's times and
What's
Bonnie's nodding.
Carl's schedule like at all? Did you?
Well, I did not have a chance to talk to Carl, and I know Carl will try to accommodate, and I don't know where to start. I agree. I mean, it's really hard to, and maybe we should have Chris try to coordinate something.
Now, keep in mind, I've invited the Grand Traverse Band on the 16th as well. I have not heard back from the Grand Traverse Band.
So tomorrow, I should probably get right on this and see what we can do.
It probably would be really good, first thing in the morning. And then perhaps if Dean can get some dates between Jim and Carl, maybe we could do a doodle poll with county board members and the city commission.
I'm going to ask Chris Kramer for help.
Oh, I'm pretty sure she's hurling something at her television right now.
She can't hurt me.
No longer can see us. She's busting the TV. Dean, is it possible, you know, and I don't remember what the conflict was. Was there something that Carl couldn't do it on the 23rd?
Yes, he had another commitment on the 23rd.
I was just thinking maybe we could go back and put our Ways and Means back on the 16th and deal with whatever we can on the 23rd.
Well, you know, I guess just amongst ourselves here, would it make sense to look at a city commission meeting date and try to do something then, or do we try to do something on September 30th?
Well, I go to the city commission meetings most of the time, so it works for me.
They're every Monday, but every other one is either a committee of the whole or a...
Well, maybe we could do something with a city commission study session.
Let me start with Chris, though, and I do need to let Carl know. I really do think that we should try to have the city commission there as a, what would it be, as a quorum. I think that makes the most sense, so.
All righty.
So we're going to take the 16th dam meeting off my list of things to get done.
Well,
I wouldn't subtract it yet.
I wouldn't cross
I wouldn't cross it off
Carl may
yet.
not be available any other time.
And if that's
And
the
is-
case, we're going to have to stay
Carl,
with the
the
16th.
Army Corps?
Yes, he's the Army Corps.
How big a presentation is that, I guess? Is it something where we could still wrap Ways and Means back into that? And then
question.
still have that free date on the 23rd if other people can come in?
I believe Steve Peacock is set up for the 23rd as well as Jim from the DEQ. I think we're kind of stuck right now. Let's see maybe what Chris Kramer can do.
Let's see what, yes.
Just get
Well,
some sleeping
and you
bags.
said that you had not heard back from the Grand Traverse
I
Band.
have not heard
so
back from the Grand Traverse
That's
Band.
another reason to reach out to
I,
them.
If we don't have a whole lot on the Ways and Means yet, I don't even know what we
I know,
have.
Dan, do you?
Well, yeah, I don't think, I'm hoping we'll interview our only remaining applicant for county administrator on the 23rd. I think that has to be a separate meeting, and I think, you want to speak to that, Chris, at all?
Well,
Further down.
as long as we're talking about special meetings, we may as well morph into that. We do have one remaining candidate scheduled for an interview upon his return from his vacation. I would like to proceed with that interview. After that interview, then I think the board should have a discussion and, as a board, decide whether or not we want to review other applicants or whether or not we want to offer a contract. So I would like to do that on the 23rd, but it doesn't have to be on the 23rd. We could do it before the board meeting at the end of the month, and just have that interview session earlier than our 6 p.m. board meeting. Whatever, I'm flexible. I'm more flexible than those of you who have real jobs. And I'm cognizant that, I need to be aware that the other 6 of you have real jobs. So.
I have no attachment to the 23rd, it's just I'd like to proceed, and I don't want to drag my feet.
But we're already there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather do something on a day we're already scheduled to be here, rather.
And we're already scheduled to be here on the 23rd. I mean, we could just
I
come.
believe Steve Peacock is set up, am I correct?
He
Yeah,
is.
Steve says, well, it's all moving target, but he thinks he'll have the numbers we need.
And then we have Jim from the DEQ
Who told me, he was planning on coming on the 23rd. Dean, I would like you, if you would be so kind, to confirm that he will indeed be here on the 23rd.
I can do that.
Thank you.
And also, Paula has told Tom to reserve the 23rd as an interview date, so he's going to be available.
Do we need to do a special meeting request, Bonnie?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay.
You just tell me the date and time.
Is there a head nodding to 5 o'clock on the 23rd, since we are already here? Bob, does that work
Do you
with your-
think that we will be
Yeah, I'm
able to
available.
do this in an hour, between 5 and 6, the interview? All right.
So that works with your travel schedule? Okay.
Now, I see that as a separate meeting from Ways and
Well, it
Means.
is.
that
It'll be a
you'll
full,
chair it.
it'll be
Yeah.
a full board
And
meeting.
we're going to, Bonnie is going to, there we go.
Here she is.
The Army Corps meeting is at 6 or 7 on the 16th?
This, at 6.
Now, we need to talk about that special meeting on the 23rd, how we proceed with the interview. And maybe what we should do is put together a little ad hoc committee, would be maybe Paula and whoever else you guys decide to, maybe we're going to do, in the past, it's been done where you had kind of a moderator and questions were asked and it was managed that way. And then there could be follow-up questions by the board. But we should decide what technique we use to interview this applicant. And I don't know if it has to be done by the board. We obviously should involve Paula in it, and maybe, a couple others on the techniques that we're going to be using to interview him.
Well, along those lines, if we could see if Paula has any interview questions, but I guess if, could put it on for next week's agenda, if anybody wanted to bring in interview questions, I guess.
No, I'm talking
No,
more
that's
about
not what
the
he means.
format of the meeting.
He means the format.
Oh,
Format,
okay.
that's what I mean.
think we can let
I
our
would hate to see a
consultant-
round robin kind of a thing. I'd rather see it more the process more formal than that.
Chris?
We'll have an hour, and we've got 7 of us. So we should just figure out.
8 minutes?
8, really, about 8 minutes apiece, and have your,
2 to 3
and-
questions apiece, and we're
yeah,
done with it.
2 to 3 questions, and that's it. Because obviously, we are not going to do all the talking for the total 8 minutes. We would like our applicant to be able to respond. So how does that sound to everybody? 2, maybe 3 questions, but you're not getting any more than 8 minutes.
Okay.
Are we good with that?
Okay, we have signed all of the papers.
We have. For all
We
of
are
them.
now, we are absolutely committed
I
now.
hope I show
All
up
right.
at all of them.
Are we okay with that?
Okay.
Well, I
so
do think
strategic-
we need Paul's input about
Yes.
how we do this.
I will.
Whether or not she's going to be a moderator or not, I'd like to see somebody that is not on this board be a moderator. So,
Well, we can have Bonnie time us.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm confused on the format. If we're all gonna just ask them some questions, there's probably not a whole lot.
Basically, we're going to get 2 questions apiece, is basically what we're going to
Yeah,
get.
there's not a.
Some of the questions might be the same.
Yeah.
And that is exactly
So-
true.
By the time you get to the last person, their questions may have been answered already.
That's exactly right. And we can hope for that.
Again.
Well, in the past, they used a moderator, just to let you know, it wasn't Ron Robin. So,
Well, I think if we just split it up, I think we'll be good. I know you want a moderator.
Well, I think that Paula this is why we have a
Yeah,
consultant.
she'll be, I would
All
think she'd
right,
be here anyway.
let me confer with our consultant.
okay. That'll
And-
make me happy.
All
That'll
right.
make me happy, because
And-
she's
and-
real smart, and
Yes.
she's done this a million times.
And I
before.
will bring her recommendation to the board next week, and/or I'll just ask her to email her
Okay.
recommendation to all the board members, and I don't need to communicate with anybody, nor should I.
So we have checked off
Okay.
dams, we have checked off interviews.
I
We
think
have checked
so.
off strategic planning.
Yes.
Yeah, we're
Hey,
good
we're back to
there.
dams.
We're going back to
Okay.
dams.
Oh,
Item
man.
number E.
Here we go.
Can't wait.
I put this on, I know you're all surprised. I brought no visual aids with me this time, but I did put this on the agenda. Last meeting, I had requested permission from our chairwoman to contact the DEQ down in Lansing and get some answers to Commissioner Johnson's question of what is the minimal we need to do. So I contacted a guy named Byron Lane. He is the Director of Hydrology and Dam Safety for the state of Michigan. And he, really nice guy, gave me so much background, and he's been around in this project since the beginning and is involved in all of the procedures. He does not attend our IT meetings. People that work for him do. Jim works for him, same department, the man that was here doing our dam inspections yesterday. So the reason I put the consent agreement on the agenda, in the agenda packet, was I know you've all seen it, but I wanted it to be fresh here that we could refer to it, because I will point you to notice that the only contractual obligation we have with the DEQ is for the Boardman Dam. According to the state of Michigan, the Sabin Dam, we have no obligation to at all. We have other different types of obligations we can have. Number one is contractual. That means we've entered into a consent agreement with somebody. We have no contractual obligation on the Sabin Dam. The other obligation is a legislative or statutory or legal obligation. And we do not have any laws that we are breaking by the Sabin Dam sitting there. And the third obligation we have is what we all, I know, value very much on this board, and that is public health and safety. And according to the dam inspection on Tuesday, the Sabin Dam continues to be safe for the public. When I talked to Mr. Lane about the history of this, he pointed me out to how this all started when there was a decision to stop using the dams to create hydroelectric energy. The state of Michigan makes you deregulate dams. If they're going to be sitting there and they're not producing electricity, they need to have this stamp on them that says they've been deregulated. And so, of course, they came here to Grand Traverse County and they deregulated the Brown Bridge Dam with no problem. And they deregulated the Sabin Dam with no problem. And the checkoffs went. But when they got to the Boardman Dam, they couldn't check it off because our spillway is not of the capacity that is required by the state for deregulation. So at that point, they told Grand Traverse County, Brown Bridge check, Sabin check, Boardman no. You have to increase your spillway. And this is all how he explained it to me to give me the background. Now, of course, as you know, I have been reading about the dams for about a year now. So I knew things, but Mr. Lane was very helpful to fill in the details. I did not understand the procedure of deregulation of dams, and now I do. He spent a lot of time explaining it to me. So at that point, the community was involved, the city and the county, and they chose to create a river restoration project. And that is where it changed from fixing a spillway to removing the dam. And I'm still not certain how the other dams got put in there, but they did. So at that point, we had until 2010 to comply with fixing the spillway. And Grand Traverse County was involved in this creation of this project, and they're trying to raise funds and bring in partners. And they said, please give us till 2012. And if you just give us till 2012, we'll have the dam removed. And you can read on the consent agreement in there, it's pretty clear how it's stated. And if we didn't have the spillway increase by 2010, then we better have the dam removed by 2012. Now, as nice as Mr. Lane was to me, he was clearly agitated with Grand Traverse County. They felt that they have given them every opportunity to meet these deadlines, and the state really does not care about a river restoration project. They care about checking off a dam that it's deregulated because that's the state law. They have to do that. And so he wants this done now. And I asked him, what is the possibility of us not removing the dam? What if we just went back to the original consent agreement, which is for spillway increase? And he said we would have to appeal the consent order. It's a contractual agreement. I did call Mr. Cooney and talk to him about this as well. We're in a contract with the DEQ to remove a dam by 2012. And if we want to amend that, we need to, he said, you better have a really good reason. So we talked about that. Now, many of you will remember my adamant plea to not pass the Cass Road Bridge agreement this year. It was not because I didn't want a Cass Road Bridge. It was not because I was trying to do something to the Road Commission. It was because once we moved that bridge 800 feet to the west, we were committed to a river restoration. And I am disappointed that this board didn't heed my plea. We missed it by 18 hours to stop. The contract was awarded by MDOT, and we do have a contractor for the Cass Road Bridge. I talked to Mr. Lane about it, and he said, you're in pretty deep on this Boardman one. Because we have somehow, instead of just removing a dam or fixing a spillway and replacing the bridge, we somehow moved it. And we rerouted an entire river in a 2-year process. And while I like the idea, and I'm a big supporter of the river restoration, I don't believe that the Road Commission needed to pay $500,000. And I don't believe that the taxpayers of Grand Traverse County needed to. I think it was not a good move by this board. So I tried what I could. I'm sorry that some might have misunderstood my motivations, but truly that was why the bad move by this board was that Cass Road Bridge contract. So setting that aside and looking to the future, I asked Mr. Lane, what would you do if you were me? And he said, the Sabin Dam, you hold no obligation to it. I personally would love to see the Sabin Dam removed along with the Boardman. I love the river restoration project. But as we come forward in a board to be looking at an increase in our debt payoff, I'm pretty certain that the taxpayers who are going to be giving up services and employees who are going to be dealing with all of the kinds of deals that they've had to deal with on their benefits and things are probably not going to be real excited about our general fund dollars going to a river restoration project. Now, I don't know what we can do about the Boardman Dam, but I'm going to continue to talk to Mr. Lane and see what we can do. To maybe we can just increase the spillway and pave over, fortify and pave over the bridge. Maybe we can, but the problem is we signed that Cass Road Bridge contract. And once we did, we added $12 million to the price tag. So what I would like to see this board do is allow CRA and the IT to do their work. I mean, they're doing good work. But Grand Traverse County is not obligated for the financial funding deficit for the Sabin Dam portion. Let's hope. We have the Army Corps coming next week. We can discuss the Army Corps option. With the DEQ coming the week after that. We have the city. I was very interested to find out that the Brown Bridge Dam neither needed to be repaired nor removed. Mr. Lane thought I knew that. Mr. Lane thought I knew that we didn't have a consent order on the Sabin Dam or on the bridge, Brown Bridge. I did not. The $1 million question is, did any of you? No. I don't think so.
There's a distinction between Boardman Dam and all three of the other dams, Union Street, Sabin, and Brown Bridge. It's called a high-risk dam because of the waterhead behind that dam. It had a distinction between Boardman Dam and all the rest of them. And that's why the consent agreement is for Boardman Dam.
Did you know that the Sabin Dam is perfectly safe?
I knew that the Sabin Dam did not have to be removed in the initial discussion, but as we've all discussed, there's been an evolution of this project, and it's become more of a restoration. And as part of that discussion was the discussion about removing Saban also.
So as we look to this project, and we talked about a funding deficit and the monies raised, we were told we were under a consent agreement with the DEQ. We had to deal with the Boardman Dam, and if you read the consent agreement, which again I included in this packet, you can see we have minimal things that we really had to do with that dam. And there's nothing about moving a bridge. There's nothing about building a new road to it, and there's nothing about rerouting a river. We weren't obligated to that until we signed the Cass Road Bridge contract. I'll never do an I told you so, but it might be my biggest one ever. I'm sorry, and I hope that the project works out well, but I won't do an I told you so or sit here again for the Saban Dam. When we talked about Phase 3, I talked about Phase 1, Phase 2, Part A, Phase 2, Part B. You've all heard me regurgitate it over and over again. Phase 3 never had to happen. Why are we talking about, when we talk about unfunded liabilities, like Dan talks about with Steve Peacock and the dams, why are we even talking about the Saban? Now, if they can raise funds, like that would be fabulous. And I can't imagine that as an owner, Grand Traverse County wouldn't be a willing partner to sign that thing over and let it be removed. All of this is a wonderful project, an absolutely fabulous project, but we appear to be under this timeline, and the only timeline we're really obligated to is the DEQ, who is pretty much done with us at this point. He didn't sound happy. He said, you are under contempt of a consent order. Like, your county is years. He said, we're talking about 2016 budget right now, and this was supposed to be removed in 2012. There's really not an excuse for it, I mean, what did you say? I'm on the phone going, well, yeah, you're right. And then, it wasn't me, right? I had to do the max power. So as we move forward, that'll be your T-shirt. As we move forward and we have these meetings, I mean, we pay a group right now, we pay $20,000 a year, the city does as well, so $40,000 a year goes towards the contractual hiring of CRA for fundraising. They're doing their fundraising, we're going to hear about updates on their fundraising, and that's all great, but I don't understand why we have this Saban Dam 2018 deadline and we raise the money that isn't raised, because Saban Dam can sit there, as he told me, as long as you pass our inspections. That's all you have to do, the required maintenance and inspections by the state of Michigan, and other than that, you have no legal obligation. That's to your citizens' health, public health and safety. So this board, I feel dumb. I never asked the question. How many damn meetings have I been to? And I've never asked the question, did we have to remove the Brown Bridge Dam? Did we have to remove the Saban Dam? I want to. I love the project. But do we have to? And it wasn't until Bob said it at that meeting, the way you said it, I was like, I don't know the answer. And after all the meetings I've sat through, I should know the answer to that question. So I went to the boss, who assumed I knew the answer, and I explained to him I didn't. He was very gracious in that part. As we move forward, I would ask that we remove the Saban Dam from any financial obligation from Grand Traverse County. We could support a river restoration project with it. We could allow the monies raised and however that works. But what I'm concerned about is that if we accept an Army Corps of Engineer grant, say for the Boardman, and then there's money left over and they say, well, we can use that towards Saban, because we are, as Grand Traverse County, the recipients of the federal grant, are we obligated? I just want to make sure that we somehow legally make sure that in 2017, whoever is sitting on the Board of Commissioners doesn't have someone come to them like we did and ask for $488,000 this year. I don't think the Road Commission should have had to pay that, and that was why I didn't support that contract. The Road Commission should not be paying it. Grand Traverse County General Fund should not be paying it, should not be paying it. It is not part of the consent order. When originally they thought that the Critical Bridge Grant was a match for the U.S. Army Corps grant, I can kind of see where it came in. In 2014, our administrator was informed that that money was not a match. Now, I've been to every meeting. The Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners was never told that. At that point, I'm going to say it again, the project should have been divorced. The Road Commission should never have been obligated to funds that had to do with a river restoration project. And as much as I probably made the Road Commission angry, I didn't not support their proposal. I didn't support that any of us had to pay it. And I'm not going to support anything for Saban. I think we have a serious lack of information here that we are making million-dollar decisions on behalf of other people. When Steve Peacock went to do our independent financial analysis and said, I don't know how to quantify the dams, well, here you go. We don't either.
Yeah, he said 2 million to 20 million. I mean, it was just up in the air.
How do we know?
Yeah.
So one thing I did talk to Mr. Lane about is how other communities dealt with their dam removals, their consent orders, and I'll be researching that more. I don't, again, this really doesn't have a lot of, I understood Mr. DeTurri's comments, but I think he might have understood why this was on the thing, because we can't really do a lot with the Boardman Dam right now. We'll look into it. But I'm really talking about the Saban Dam this evening. Chris?
I agree with you that Saban Dam should, unless we absolutely positively have to, no general fund dollars should go towards Saban Dam removal, unless it becomes, a severe safety problem. That doesn't mean that I don't support removal of Saban Dam if the funds become available. Because you are exactly right, Commissioner Kropa, that who among us would say, gee, we're going to give you $2.5 million to remove Saban Dam, we would sign on the dotted line to take the dam out. I believe we would. That having been said, I greatly appreciate the research that you're doing. We are under an obligation to build a bridge. I wonder, and yeah, I have several questions. Can we move? And I'm pretty sure I'm going to give Jim Cook a heart palpitation here. Can we move the location of that bridge? Is that a possibility? I mean, the contractor probably wants to build a bridge.
Can we negotiate with the contractor?
Can we negotiate with the contractor, since the contractor is, or are we obligated, as it was presented to the state of Michigan, to get the critical bridge grant? I don't know the answer to these questions, but I think they're questions that we have to ask.
I think we're about 3 months too late.
And if we are, we are.
I tried valiantly on this one. I was sorry because the press decided to make it look like I was pushing a bypass, but instead all I was trying to do was save the general fund and the road commission.
Well, if it is, I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is because the information didn't get out there, because regardless of how hard and how factual we say it, there are powers that be at this county that are so anti-growth and anti-bypass that they will do anything to make sure that this Cass Road Bridge goes in and our Hartman-Hammond Bridge doesn't go in. And I never mentioned those words that night. All I did was plead with this board to not sign that contract.
Well,
all we needed was just a little bit of time to negotiate and build the Cass Road Bridge where the damn bridge is right now, and I mean that literally, the damn bridge.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be a bridge over dirt and then the next summer we dig it out and make a river. It's lovely. The concept I appreciate greatly. The checking account it's coming out of, not so much.
We are where we are. So I'm supportive of taking Saban off the plate, unless a box of money falls out of the sky. A donor comes in and says, I think it's a wonderful, worthwhile project. Here's the money.
Bob.
Yeah, I mean, to me, everything's on the table. I mean, even if we could somehow figure out how to move the bridge, I know that would be monumental. I mean, with all the testing and everything else. We could get Andy out there with the shovel and start testing.
We actually could build the bridge and
leave it over
and honor our contract, and that's just, we have a bridge.
But one of the things, and really sets me off, and it was again
Little
tonight,
humor there.
is the fact that as soon as we start talking about this, it's like back when I was young and you didn't talk about cancer. You know, if you start mentioning about the money with this whole project, the fact that we start talking about it's going to pull all these donors and everything else. Well, they haven't raised all the money yet, not even close. And we owe it to this county to continually look at this project. I agree. To me, Sabin shouldn't be an option right now. We can't afford it. You know, we have to look at this financially with everything else we have. What are we doing? And, you know, I personally, I think the wool was pulled over the eyes of the previous commissions too. I don't think they were given the information. I don't know if it was purposeful or not. I don't want to go that far, but I just think that information was not forthcoming where they could make good decisions, I think. And I think moving forward, now that we're asking the tough questions, yeah, we're at the bottom of the ninth inning, but I think, you know, we need to ask these questions and figure out moving forward, what can we do?
Dan?
Well, I guess the question for Bob, do we need to do anything if we don't have any legal obligation to move Sabin Dam? Do we have to make any decision?
You have to remove Boardman.
Pardon?
You have to remove
Well,
Boardman.
I'm not talking, I'm talking about Sabin
We're talking
right
about
now.
Sabin
I'm talking
Dam
about
tonight.
Sabin. Does the board need to make any decision? We're, you know, we're not
Well,
obligated
there's
to
been a
do it.
lot discussed here tonight, and I don't know if you're saying, we have to do something about the spillway? That's,
You're talking about Boardman. I'm talking about Sabin.
He's just talking about Sabin.
I'm talking about Sabin
if
only.
you want a legal opinion, then I would be happy to prepare
Okay.
a legal opinion about.
What action do we need to take on Sabin if we decide not to do anything? Maybe no action. You know?
No, I think we'd have to do, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the way we're headed now is action, and I think we'd have to stop this process, if I'm not mistaken. But- And I could be wrong.
Well, if the obligation doesn't truly exist,
Yeah, what I'm saying is with this whole river restoration project, that's all packaged
Yeah.
almost as one thing right now, so.
Well, I think what you're asking is, does the board at this point, does it have any obligation to remove Sabin Dam or do any other work on Sabin Dam?
and if so, what action do we need to take? And I'm wondering if maybe no action. You know, that maybe we don't need to do anything. If we're not truly obligated, well, we don't have to do anything.
So I'd suggest a motion to have our office prepare a legal memorandum regarding Sabin Dam and what the county's obligations are at this point in time.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion?
Who supported that?
Just heard Dean.
Who was the support? Johnson?
But just to comment, and Bob can, I'm sure he would take a look at this. We review these documents from time to time, the settlement agreement. I'm not sure what's all included in that. So Bob will definitely take a look at that, which I think that's more encompassing of the entire project. And then obviously with Jim being there yesterday to do the inspection, I think the inspection report, or his report when we get that, will confirm that, it was my understanding that Sabin is not an issue. And Commissioner Kropa is right. The consent agreement does not apply to Sabin Dam at all. So that's a good thing for us. And hopefully that inspection report, I've not seen one of those, but that should confirm that Sabin is fine, you know, in terms of a public safety risk. So that's what we heard yesterday.
We did.
Can I just ask anyone why we've been talking about it like an unfunded liability then? Why
Well-
would we remove a dam that is not in need of repair or removal?
None of the dam removal project has ever been accounted for as an unfunded liability in your financial statements because the board has made no financial commitment. There's no contract saying that, you know, Boardman is approaching that because of the consent agreement, but, you know, there's absolutely no liability, in my professional opinion, for Sabin because you're not obligated in any way at this point in time to do anything.
Did anyone else know that?
No, I thought it was all, I thought
Okay.
we already marched on that.
we were obligated.
If you could have seen my face, and Mr. Lane said to me, "Are you still there?" And I said, "I need you to repeat this." I made him repeat it 3 times.
Have you dropped to the floor?
He said to me, "You had an administrator that attended the IT meetings with our regional representative." I believe he's out of Gaylord, the DEQ fellow out of Gaylord. I'm losing the name. He said, "Was the Board of Commissioners not informed?" And I said, this county commissioner was not informed. And I believe, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I've been to more dam meetings than everyone here put together. I'm also had the special dam intervention that our previous administrator scheduled, where I was able to one-on-one ask questions to people. And I asked some pretty detailed questions. Jim was there, you remember, who was at the road commission. And I don't once remember anybody telling me, oh, and by the way, you don't have to remove Sabin, and you didn't have to remove Brown Bridge. Brown Bridge Dam garnered somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million of grant money.
5.7.
Had we thought that money would have more than fixed our financial obligation with our consent order with the state of Michigan. If people really wanted to create a new bridge, fine, then they could have discussed it there with the money. Instead, our road commission is out almost $500,000. We have the funding gap obligation on Part 2 of Part B of Phase 2, the road. And I don't care if I'm going to be mocked in the ticker again. We're building a bridge to nowhere. At this point, I'm going to say rainbows and unicorns.
I knew you would.
I know. Because I didn't get it. And Mr. Lane was so generous with me with his time. He spent about 2 hours with me explaining this. Now, I have his information, by the way, and any of you are welcome to call him or meet with him at any time. Chris?
I'm not going to call him because I don't want him thinking about Grand Traverse County.
Yeah, he's not happy with
I'm
Grand
pretty sure
Traverse
not.
County.
I would like to meet with Mr. Cook and find out, as Dr. Johnson suggested, what we absolutely can and can't do regarding that bridge. I mean, if I can lift it up and move it over to where the bridge is now, I'm happy with that.
Well, I asked Mr. Lane about that, and of course, he reminded me he was a dam person. His job is Director of Hydrology and Dam Safety for the state of Michigan. He does not work for MDOT, nor is he affiliated with MDOT. But when I asked him that, I said, we have a road over our dam right now.
Yeah.
And if we were to take out the dam and put the bridge there, or if we were to repair the spillway and somehow fortify it to create a dam bridge, would that be okay with the Department of Hydrology and Dam Safety? He said, well, that just makes perfect sense to me. So I don't know if we're stuck, but I know where we're really stuck is this letter is going to come probably this month from the state of Michigan holding our feet to the fire. They're done. They're done. They're like a mom whose kids have been screaming all day, and they're done. And we're going to have to make a decision. We will see how the city feels about that. Obviously, the Grand Traverse Band, they're our partner as well. But as far as funding of the Sabin, I don't see where this board has a current obligation. Of course, Mr. Cooney's opinion will be the say on that. And if we do, that we are in, I don't think we're in where to a point of no return on that.
Not to put more on Bob's plate.
If you could design a new bridge for it.
It's your opinion, Elisa, that we're stuck with this bridge where it's at. Is it really true? That's my question. Is it really true? Can we move it? And how do we find that out?
Jim would be able to answer that better.
MDOT is really what I was told, because it's out of our road commission's hands, because the contract has been awarded to a contractor for the design that was informed. Does that make sense?
It's sunny.
Fine. It'll go away shortly. I have my business phones have been out of service for 3 days, so the only phone number AT&T has is my cell phone to try to fix them.
So I was told MDOT, and certainly meeting with Mr. Cook would be the right way to do it, and that has to do with the contractor that was awarded.
Well, maybe the contractor doesn't care where he puts the bridge.
But I think where we have potential
The
is,
design will be different.
even if the bridge is built, and even if we have to deal with the fact that it's a bridge built over dirt right now, are we able to maybe do less of the restoration part? Or if they're able to raise funds for that, that would be great, but what is our financial obligation of the taxpayers here in Grand Traverse County? I mean, obviously, it's all taxpayer money, so I really say that with a grain of salt, but.
I remember hearing that because the county's going to have to foot the rest of the bill, it may be a little more difficult to raise money now that the county doesn't have to follow through with the river restoration or remove Sabin Dam. Maybe it'll be easier to raise money because this is how it's going to sit.
Yeah. I mean, it may if somebody is really, has their heart set on complete removal of all of the dams.
Right.
If it's going to sit, you're right, it might be the prompt that they need for the fundraising. I would hope, with or without Grand Traverse County as a funding partner in Phase 3, that, I mean, I don't believe that the people that are doing this without a passion for what they're doing. I would hope that they would continue on the river restoration fundraising, and that the funders would be as the same, if not more inclined. I guess I don't understand why we were put on a timeline for 2018 if we weren't under a consent order. Every time we asked about it, we said those dams had to be removed by 2012, they had to be removed, they had to be removed. So I got it, but it never occurred to me to ask. I'm sorry that none of this is ever in the press. I'm sorry that the citizens of Grand Traverse County can't help weigh in. Maybe there's a big group of citizens that would love to be part of fundraising or be a part of finishing this project. Maybe there's special interest groups or volunteer groups that would want to be a part of this, just as we ask for partners in everything, from our baseball team to our other parks programs to the clock tower restoration. I don't understand why it became general fund dollars of Grand Traverse County, and certainly why it went into the road commission's budget. I will never understand that. However, I think the legal opinion will help us move forward. I think we'll be hearing from the Army Corps. My assumption is they are going to look into the 35% match being non-local dollars. As we all know, they're having a very difficult time raising. So in theory, if the U.S. Army Corps waives that, let's say hypothetically we hear that next week, perhaps that will help out the fundraising efforts for Boardman. But at that point, I'm still not certain what our obligation is, and I'm certainly pretty certain we have no obligation to Sabin, as Dean said. And I say we just pull out. So how do we pull out? Do we pull out? Is it a legal obligation? I don't know. And that's what we need to find out. And then allow them to continue their restoration, and it might take a couple extra years. Maybe like Ron said, it might speed it up and it'll be done before you know it. But I'm not certain why we sit at the table for that if it's not our financial obligation and it's not our safety obligation. Dan?
I'm still confused. I don't think we know the answer on Boardman yet, even.
We don't.
So who's going to find it out?
Chris and I will talk to Jim about MDOT. I am going to contact Mr. Lane at the DEQ again and ask him for his advice. He was very forthright with advice to me when I spoke to him, and I'm certain he will continue to be. I offered to go down there, yes, on my own dime. Mike Walton, if you're watching this, please don't write an article about it, to go down and talk to the Lane.
We'll take my Prius. It gets 53 miles to the gallon.
And go down to Lansing and speak to them if we need to. There's a long history. I mean, they want to check off deregulation on Boardman Dam. They don't care if the dam's not there. They don't care if the dam's fixed. He told me, I literally don't care. I just want to close that page up in history because it's been deregulated in theory for many years. It has not produced power.
Elisa, the next time you talk to him, would you, and I brought this up when I was touring the dam. So we build a new bridge. Is it possible that all we have to do is breach? Is it there? I know the consent order says we have to fix the spillway or remove the dam. Is breaching?
Well, I'll
even
tell
an
you what he
option.
told me. He told me technically, right now, as we sit, as the consent order is written, we are obligated to remove the dam. The reason being is, if you will look under the listing on the consent order or consent agreement, which we agreed to, A, by August 31st, 2007, draw down water behind dam. Okay, first of all, that has been done, but it was not done by 2007. B, complete a feasibility study of options. You and I have recently read that feasibility study. And the interesting part of that feasibility study is it never mentioned, somebody needs welding really super bad tonight. It's a welding emergency. The options in that report that you and I read, all of them.
I can't talk to you right now.
I've been yelled at him by him too. I don't, sorry. As far as the feasibility options, they all of them, and correct me if I'm wrong, included all of the dams. There was never a feasibility option
no.
just to repair the
there
Boardman.
wasn't.
So I'm certain nobody did that rogue. I'm certain some group pointed, whoever did the feasibility study. It was that engineering group.
ECT?
Peerless, ECT Peerless?
AKT.
AKT Peerless?
Oh, okay.
Was it that? I can't remember. Okay, then, so that was done, but not done by September 2008. C, complete all necessary engineering design work to provide adequate spillway capacity or to remove the dam by June 30th, 2009. We all know that that wasn't done on time, but it has been done, and it was chosen to remove the dam. D, if the decision is made to keep the dam and provide adequate spillway capacity, meaning no removal, we just want to fix the spillway, all work must be completed and the dam shall comply with spillway requirements of Part 315 by December 31st, 2010. Okay, clearly we did not do that because we chose to remove the dam. So then you go down to Part E. If the decision is made to remove the dam, the removal shall be completed by December 31st, 2012. Mr. Lane pointed me to Part E, and he said, you are currently not in compliance with either D or E, and E is what holds with us. So unless if you appeal this consent order, we are expecting the dam to be removed. He said that people do appeal consent orders, but they have to have, seriously, he said this, a damn good reason. So there was
Hydrological
if you
humor.
can get a joke out of anybody from the state of Michigan, I appreciate it. And I was certainly dumbfounded in most of this conversation. So as we said, we are obligated to remove this dam by a contractual agreement with the state DEQ. However, we have an appellate procedure. Now, I would be pushing and pushing and pushing for this, except we signed the Cass Road Bridge Agreement. And once we signed the Cass Road Bridge Agreement, the contractors thing went out. And we missed it. Mr. Cook was very helpful in trying to stop that process, yet we missed it by just a very short little window, as you know. And unfortunately, the contract was awarded. So if we address Part B of Phase 2, I have to say it again, which is the road to the bridge, that also includes the dam removal, then we need to, unfortunately, engineering has already been done. Grant money has already been accepted, and contractors have already been awarded.
And we can still build the bridge and honor the contract.
Yep.
I mean,
I
so is the
honestly,
bridge
I
sitting
don't
there.
know. I mean, I'm willing
I
to
hate
find
to
out more
say it.
information on the Boardman, but I don't have your answers. But what I do have your answers to is the Sabin, because it was super easy. The answer is no.
Yeah, and I do think that it is imperative to communicate with our partners, the city and the Grand Traverse Band, and hear their commitment, you know, whether, I want to hear whether they are, and they've had commissioners change over.
Absolutely, and they are
And
about to enter into
and
a
the
big
tribal
change.
council has had new members change over. So I would really like the opportunity to sit down with our partners and ask them if they are still committed to this project.
I am curious as to whether the city commissioners are aware that the Brown Bridge Dam didn't need to be removed.
I don't know. I know there was one commissioner, she is no longer serving, but she was vehemently opposed to removing.
If they did know about it,
Brown
then
Bridge.
that would lead me to believe that their heart lied in a river restoration. And if it did, they accepted $5+ million in a river restoration, and perhaps they're willing partners in continuing a river restoration. So we don't know. It depends on where their heart's at as well. Dan?
Oh, actually, what to do with the Boardman is far more complex than what to do with the Saban.
Absolutely.
And so I'm perplexed. I mean, I sure hope we can come up with some answers. We don't even know our options.
Well, we're dealing with the state of Michigan and 2 local government entities, the Grand Traverse Band.
And also an agreement with a company to build a bridge.
Well, we have engineers, we have a fundraising group,
Yeah.
we have scientists and all kinds of people that put a lot of time and effort into this. And they have had a successful restoration of portions of the Boardman River south of where the Brown Bridge lay. The Brown Bridge continues to have some issues for the city, obviously, but the dam is removed. And certainly, it's great. I love hiking down there.
Well, I don't want us to build a bridge nowhere, you guys.
This board
That would
signed
be
a
such
Cass
a-
Road Bridge agreement.
Pardon?
The day this board signed the Cass Road Bridge agreement, they signed a bridge to
I wonder if.
And it won't be a bridge to nowhere now. I mean, we're committed. If we build the bridge, we're gonna have to take the dam out.
Then we're gonna have to move the river.
Exactly.
I mean,
What we don't have to do is mess with Saban.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've talked about this a
Yeah.
lot tonight.
I think we have a
and it's-
moral obligation that if we're going to build a bridge, it has to be over the river. We
Right.
can't have it be nowhere. That's stupid.
Right.
Okay, so I think we have an obligation to do the river restoration to that point, unless there's another
I don't think
option.
we have a financial obligation, is my point. We have an obligation to remove the dam. We are not certain what portion of that is a river restoration, so we need to find out.
Okay.
And perhaps we can help get funding from the city for it. I don't know,
Okay. I just don't
something.
want to build a bridge to nowhere, you guys. That's just bad.
Well, we don't have a choice. The contractor's already been
Okay.
contracted. It was unfortunate that this happened, but now we're just going to have to figure it out. But I still say, right now, Part B went up almost $100,000, and that brings us from 7.1 million to near $8 million. I'm sorry, almost $1 million. I misspoke. So we have Part A funded, thanks to the Road Commission and the Critical Bridge Grant. Part B, I believe last I read, they had committed $2.5 million in funding, and they're certainly moving forward as hard as they can on fundraising the rest. But that sits at about $9 million, which is the portion with the road and the dam removal. And my understanding is Grand Traverse County is obligated to the funding gap there. And we do have a timeline, because once the bridge is built next summer, the following summer of 2017, the rest has to be paid for. I mean, you just have to. We're committed because we signed that contract. So now that we've done that, we know we have to do that, and we have a timeline, and we're obligated by a consent order. We need to find out how much of that money we really are obligated to, and how much of it is restoration and what we can do. And then we can say we're out. I mean, thank you, we did it, we're done, and hopefully the saving money can be raised, but not out of the county general fund.
I see.
And as far as the Union Dam, I think it was roughly about 1.5 million in not repairs, that's not the right word, but restoration or something.
Renovations.
Yeah, renovation. And I know that the city commission has been meeting anyways about talking about adding to that and creating a whitewater park and that sort of thing. So they're on their own, working with their projects as well. And we could leave the Saban until time comes when it can be removed. So we're going to move forward. Commissioner Max Bauer and I will get our legal opinion from Mr. Cooney. We will be meeting with the Army Corps next week. And we will be meeting with Jim I don't want to say wrong, Pawlowski? I'm not sure.
I just call him
Key.
Jim.
Jim from the DEQ. And whoever else wants to join
And
with
Jim's
us.
very, very familiar with both of those
Yes.
dams.
Yep.
Because I've been down in through the tunnel and down where all the concrete's falling is on the bottom side of that dam with him on a couple occasions.
And we still have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor for the legal opinion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We will have an update on the HR Director's opinion. Commissioner Max Bauer,
Yes,
looking for that email. Paula Segala sent us an email today.
Paula Segala sent all
regarding this.
commissioners an email after our last board meeting, and we discussed whether or not we were going to lower our standards, and we as a board indicated that we were not inclined to lower our standards. I asked Paula for a recommendation, and you have it before you. And I am going to make a motion to accept Paula Segala's recommendation, option number 2, to increase the salary range commensurate with the finance director and health officer, $79,983 to $99,995. Responsibilities as chief negotiator and labor/employee relations actions and decisions are commensurate to the responsibilities/accountabilities of these 2 other positions. And in addition, I would ask that Paula add responsibility to the position that this individual will act as a strategic advisor to the county administrator on a wide variety of human resource issues, including policies, labor negotiations, labor and employee relations issues, benefits, performance management issues, and organizational design and development. And after we get a second, if we get one, I would like to comment.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Max Bauer, second by Lathrop. Commissioner Max Bauer.
I did have, and I'm fairly sure other commissioners also have talked with Paula Segala about this. The option number 2, that range is market range for this position. We have had difficulty attracting, we are on the low end of the wage scale for an HR director. And when you do stop and consider that an HR director is a negotiator in labor negotiations, is involved on a daily basis with over 500 employees and employee issues that could, or not necessarily, but certainly could result in litigation. The HR director also has to have knowledge of the laws, changing benefits laws, changing labor laws. I do feel that option number 2, in order to attract someone of high quality, is what we need to do.
Is there any other discussion? Bob?
Yeah, I don't know. I know, I'm not in that realm of HR, but it just seems to me like the 83,000 at the high end is pretty high anyway. But I mean, I guess if I know we've had people turn it down, but I think it's also the timing too of other companies that had openings. You know, I agree we don't want to settle, but I don't know if I need more time to really research this more or what, but my first instinct is to not go with it. But I know we want to get the right person in there.
Keep in mind that the wage scale is going to be from 79 up to 99.
Yeah, but they've already turned down.
Yeah, we've had people turn down the 83, and
Turn down the 83, and now you're going to start at 80 and go to 100.
Yeah.
You know, it's...
I want to...
And I mean, again, that
Okay.
may be what we have to do with that position.
If we don't get a person that has those skills and negotiating with the unions and stuff, we're going to have to pay an attorney to do it. And he's not going to be cheap either, or she. It'd be nice to have someone that has those skills. And they're going to cost money either way.
Well, remember, we got that list of all of the positions in the county, contract and non-contract, what they make, their benefits, and that sort of thing. The HR director is on the very low end of people with responsibility. There are many staff members below department heads that make more than our HR director made. And as was pointed out, this brings them up with the health officer, the director of the health department, the finance director. It puts this person, whoever it is, at a level of it is a serious position. When HR falls apart, everything falls apart. I don't know that we have acknowledged, celebrated, or supported the person in the HR position in this county in the past. And I'd be willing to say, actually, I know for a fact that's why we're sitting without one right now. I think it wouldn't hurt to cast the net. We're not obligated to anything by casting a net with a spectrum that's different than the others.
I'm adding responsibilities here, too.
There are added responsibilities, and I think we foresee a need for an HR director that has these skills as we're looking forward to the change that we're all discussed in our strategic planning meeting that the county needs to move in. And this person will be critical. They will be an assistant to the administrator in ways. Our labor negotiations, we all have discussed those and how we feel about those, and this person would be the head of that. We have discussed issues with employees at the county. We have discussed our multiple lawsuits that have to do with employees at the county, and I'm talking about things on the public record, obviously, right now. The HR director does all of that. As Dan pointed out, they do legal, they do financial. They are the person that instead of our administrator having to go deal with every single employee disciplinary problem, we have somebody that steps in and does that. This is a critical role, a role we've been missing at this county. And we all know of some of the employee problems right now and how much it would have helped our employees to have had somebody with these powers to be able to assist them.
I think that those powers are already there.
No, we're adding.
Before, there was, I'll be quiet.
I think that we had an employee, with the ability to do them, but their hands tied behind their back. We're now allowing that person to serve in the capability that our prior person should have. We listened to the problems that person had, and now we hope to not repeat them.
I really value, I raise my hand. I really value Paula's input. She's the one that, said we should do this. And I look at it and I think, maybe it was implied in the past that they do it, but she's actually saying these are new powers, new responsibilities. And, I think she's right.
I will point out that many entities, because I did research this and looked into the going salaries, and obviously the going salaries in Traverse are usually a lot different than around the state, but labor negotiation specialist is typically a second position at most major private and public entities, and those are salaries that garner up to the $100,000 mark on their own. We're asking for a person to do all the human resources, we all know our tremendous amount of legal battles that we have at the county, and then you add in labor negotiations. It is an awful lot on one person's plate. And then you don't allow them to have the power to make certain decisions they need to. We're restoring that power, and we're compensating them to the value of that. And perhaps it won't make the difference in the net that's cast, but I think it's worth a try. And I think it's worth letting our consultant, listening to what our expert consultant that we hired and we'd like to get our dollars worth out of, offered us to do. If we allow her that, perhaps she can produce the results that we're expecting. Sonny.
I can't help but remember earlier discussions this evening when we talked about 15% of the people in this community make $16,000 a year, $333 a week. How do I tell those people that are paying for me to be here and I'm representing, okay, you make $16,000 a year, but I'm going to advertise a position starting at $90,000. I don't know how I do that. I just have a really hard time believing, and we've done this lots of different times, people leave, people retire, and we end up having to pay 15% more money to get an applicant to fill their job than the person that was experienced in doing the job before. And that just always frustrates me. We continuously put ourselves in a situation where, in order to get someone that we deem to be qualified, we're paying 10 or 15% more than the person that left that job that had been doing it for 15 years. You know, and that's a real problem for me. You know, and I just have a really hard time thinking that we have to advertise $90,000 to $100,000 or $80,000 to $100,000 to get applications for this position.
Carol?
But what is the reason that we are losing
Yes.
that person that left after 15 years of doing such a job at a much lower rate of pay? Probably because they got a job at a higher rate of pay. So we do have to keep up with the rising rates of pay for that particular position. They're going to, they're going to leave to get a different, that's probably why they're leaving, is because somebody's going to give them $15,000, $20,000 more to do that job. And so that's why we have to pay the next person more. It seems like a vicious cycle, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, people don't work just for money. They want to have meaning in their job. That's just as important. And what I like about Paula's suggestion is that we're expanding this job to a more important, prestigious, if you want to say prestigious, a more important, integral, judgment-making thing. That might attract people too, the fact that it's a bigger, better job. You know, it's like being a surgeon. If I could only do appendectomies when I was capable of doing open heart surgery, I'd want to do the best I could. I'd want to do the open heart surgery. So we might, because the job is a bigger description, bigger requirement, we might attract some people.
Our HR director is our first line of defense against employee lawsuits.
Yeah.
And if our HR director is able and has the power to do their job, that saves our prosecutor's office. That saves us having to hire out attorneys. That it saves arbitration. It saves all of that kind of stuff. This is every department head in our county is important in its own department. But HR affects all of the departments. When we have a department head in facilities that's having an issue with employees, they go to our HR director. Our HR director not only runs their own department and does all the stuff of all of the other department heads, they are a partner to and a resource for all of the other department heads, the commissioners, and the elected officials in the county. I think it is a critical role. And I don't think we can say it's worth it to pay it for a finance director or a health director, but not for an HR director, until we see what's out there. We might get nothing. We might offer it at the very lowest part of the scale. But how do we know that we aren't going to if we don't try? We're not obligated. It's no different than this time.
In doing this, we might get an applicant that inspires us. That we think, wow, yeah, we'll pay this for this person. Look what they can do. So I just think it makes our net bigger. And like she said, we're not obligated to spend more.
It's just a job description in a help wanted ad. It's not changing a plan of some kind. So I don't see why we wouldn't try. Is there any other discussion on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, we will mark it as 6-1. On to the next item. We have new business. Hey, nothing. Second public comment. Mr. McGuire, come on up.
Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I know you've had a long meeting, because I've sat through most of it. So I'll try and be brief.
You need to introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Tim McGuire, Executive Director of Michigan Association of Counties, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I also appreciate that our association is going to be coming up to Grand Traverse Resort the 20th through the 22nd. We'll have about 350 county officials from throughout the state of Michigan, and they will be attending the conference and hopefully get some of this beautiful Grand Traverse County weather. On behalf of John Campbell, the President of the Michigan Association of Counties and the Board of Directors, I thank you for allowing me a chance to talk to you. I'm pleased to let you know that we were successful in putting revenue sharing into the 2016 budget. As you know, in 2015 was the first year in over 11 years that we had 100% full funding for revenue sharing, so we're pleased that that's in the budget. We're very, very concerned about that being looked at as a consideration when the other transportation proposals were out there. So we were able to deflect that, and it is in the 2016 budget. I also let you know that talking about PILT payments earlier in the day today in the meeting, Casey Steffi is on our staff, is presently in Washington, D.C., working at the PILT fly-in for federal PILT payments, which mean about $4.4 million annually to Michigan counties. So we're working with our congressional delegations and Senate people on that federal PILT. Also, I would let you know that Dina Bosworth, who has been with the staff for about 4 years, has resigned and taken another position, and we're presently looking and reviewing the applicants for filling that position. And yes, we face the same situations as you were just describing in Grand Traverse County. We're really hopeful that the legislature will get back to business and tackle some of these problems that were outlined today during your discussions, as well as the ones that we have set forward and in our platform. I brought some materials for you. You can take a look at them. They outline our priorities. I don't need to go over those. You probably all get our updates each Friday, and if you don't, please let me know. But once again, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to address you and really listen to the concerns that you have. It's very helpful for me to be able to go back to our staff and indicate what's on the minds of our commissioners from out the state. So therefore, I'll pass these out, and look forward to seeing all of you. Hopefully you can stop by the meeting in a couple weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Matt? Okay.
Matthew Scheck, 306 West 9th Street. Boardman Dams. I wish I could pass out 7 red reset buttons for you folks. This is my way of having a frustration with what has been happening with our dams. I know some of you feel the same way, but I had a little different tact. At the very beginning, I didn't make any of the meetings, but I sent emails out to then sitting commissioners of this body expressing my concern. Many of us wanted to keep the dams, especially those dams that were producing energy. I don't care if that didn't produce a whole lot of energy. It was something that was generating income. It could have reduced the utility bills of a lot of people in the county. I said reduce, doesn't pay for all of it. But here's the thing. You also had, it's frustrating. We also had a gentleman that wanted to buy the dam that would put it into operation, but that was turned down because what? Well, today it was corrected. The dam didn't need to be removed. So you can see that you guys might feel frustration, but there's a lot of us citizens out there that damn well feel a lot of frustration with boondoggling, government over regulations, just deceit sometimes. I don't know if it goes to that depth of it, but it is really frustrating to see. Yeah, I guess even in voting, I guess a lot of us would feel like we would have a reset button for that too. I know that it'll be a tough haul for you guys. You're going to go through things like, I don't know if you've thought of this. I know you've got a contract that's already signed. I worked in construction. I know that there's a lot of times that people change their mind after they've already signed a contract, but contracts can be renegotiated, but it is usually costly. But I don't know to what extent construction has been started, but it might be just in design engineers. Who knows? But that's up to you guys to do now. It's a pity that it had to go this far. But I thank you for your honesty. I guess it's something that can say that it's positive about this meeting tonight. I know there's more. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Anyone else? Okay, are there any commissioner committee reports or notices? Christine?
I just want to let everybody know that the Soil Erosion Committee is moving along sprightly. I think we're productive. It's It'll be another month before we meet again, but we're getting there. Just wanted to let everybody know we have not dropped the ball.
And I'm on that committee. Bob has played a tremendous role helping us with that, as well as T.J. Phillips has done a good job. Those two have done yeoman's work. Thanking you, Bob. Good job.
T.J. Andrews.
T.J. Andrews.
You're thinking
T.J.
the
Phillips, the judge,
You're
right?
the judge. He's going,
He
what'd
did a
I
good
do?
job too. Yeah, I'm sorry, T.J. Andrews. They both put a lot of work into it, and that group of people has really worked hard to come up with a solid ordinance for us. And, I'm thanking them.
Anyone else? I'll just let you know in Garfield last night that their board unanimously approved the new IMAX theater to go forward with a beer and wine license to go to the state. It's called a resort license. The state gives out 15 of them a year. When a township or city or whatever has met their amount of liquor licenses they're allowed per capita, and then there's none in escrow. So that was exciting. I mean, it'll probably be $37.50 for a beer, but no, I learned a lot about liquor licensing, and it's interesting, and I always enjoy going to the township meetings because of that. I think that it's a different level of government that handles details that the county doesn't, and there's a lot to be learned there. And tomorrow I will be speaking at the Grand Traverse Band's memorial ceremony for their first ever chair. So that'll be interesting, and I will be speaking on behalf of our board and citizens of Grand Traverse County, so I'll let you know how that goes. I'm looking forward to it, and I think that is it. No need for a closed session. We are adjourned.
Before you guys run away.
Got to sign something.
No. I need you to just look at this from